Believe it or not, it's been a month since we've all seen each other. Everybody have a copy of that? We have all regular members present, and I think all regular members were at that last meeting. Okay, any comments, questions?
Yes, I have some questions.
Okay, motion to approve by Commissioner Francis. Thank you, Commissioner Francis. Second by Commissioner Corcoran. Commissioner Francis?
Under 1675 Post Road.
Can you turn your mic on, please? I think you need to turn it on. Yeah, thanks.
Under 1675 Post Road, is there an extra "the" application in line 2?
Where are you?
Under 1675 Post Road,
Yeah,
is there an extra "the" application in line 2?
to approve the application.
To approve the application, the compliance application. I
Right,
think
and-
they just want compliance application. Okay.
Yeah, I would just put a period after the application, period, and delete the compliance application. Okay, so that's...
It's not important that it's a compliance application?
Yeah,
Okay. Page 2,
yeah.
line 3. Should there be the word "it" between application and "is"?
We voted to deny. When I read it first time, I didn't see that it was out of...
The application, since having found the proposal is not a bona fide application, is denied. Well, okay, I guess it's a parenthetical
Right.
phrase that isn't comma off. Okay. And thirdly, under 783 Kings Highway, number 1, is that what we wanted, total flood area openings, or did we want the total number of flood openings?
I don't have it in front of me, so just
Oh.
read the sentence and I'll let you know.
Okay, well, if you could just check that.
What
I'd appreciate it.
what page is that on?
Submit the calculations for the total area of flood openings in the lower level. This is talking about 783 Kings
Right,
Highway.
right. Yeah, the total area is what we want.
Area was correct. Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
so your motion is to approve. Would you accept a friendly amendment to delete then the 3 words, the compliance application is 1675? Yes? Commissioner Francis?
Yes, it was.
Yes, okay. And Commissioner Corcoran? Do you agree?
Yes.
All right. With that correction, does anyone else have any other comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the minutes as corrected are adopted unanimously. Next item is 1150 Westport Turnpike, request of Attorney Fallon for a 90-day extension for recording a final subdivision map.
Mr. Chairman, this was a 2-lot subdivision approved in September of last year. Has received 1 extension. This is the last possible 90-day extension available to it.
Okay. And it is as of right.
Yep.
Okay. I have a motion? Motion to approve by Commissioner McAleese. Second by Commissioner Noonan. Okay. Any questions or comments? This is a second extension as of right. Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The request is granted unanimously. Next are new applications to recommend a public hearing. First is zoning regulation amendment, which I'll call in combination with item B, for 104-116 Fisk Street. It's the application of Dog On It LLC to amend section 21.2 regarding dog daycare, and a special permit application of Dog On It LLC to establish a dog daycare facility in an existing building in the Design Industrial District.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, a year or so ago, this commission approved an amendment to the regulations for dog daycare limited to the Design Commercial District. We have a location on Fisk Street, as shown in item B, where someone is looking to establish a business in the industrial zone. Does require an amendment to the regulations to consider that, so they are proposing a regulation and a companion application to establish the use.
Okay. These are items 2A and 2B. Have a motion to, with respect to them? Motion to move 2A and B to public hearing by Commissioner Noonan. Second by Commissioner Corcoran. Comments? Commissioner Francis?
What am I remembering from dog daycare last year? Didn't we approve one?
We did, well, you did, I'm sorry. There was one approved but never established. The owner,
Right.
yeah, they never got to see eye to eye with the lease arrangement, and they changed their mind and never moved in.
But we didn't have to amend anything for that?
No, there was an amendment application at that time as well, but that was for, limited to the design commercial
Oh,
district.
okay. Thank you. Same applicant.
Different applicant.
I would have remembered dog on it. I mean, that's a good one. Commissioner Corcoran?
So why do we need an amendment here?
Well, whether you need it or not is going to be up to you, but at present, it's not a permitted use. So they
In
wouldn't
the
be...
industrial district.
They wouldn't be able to make the application without proposing a companion text application.
It's been a while since we had a steel mill, but I don't think we were doing doggy daycare next to the steel mill. Any other questions? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? 2A and B are moved to public hearing unanimously. Next is 1073 North Benson Road, special exception application of Fairfield U pertaining to a 4-story lounge addition to an existing dormitory in the AA zone.
I don't really have much other than what's described here. There's an existing dormitory building. They want to put a decent-sized lounge on the first floor, and then on the subsequent floors above it, smaller lounge, but it is in addition to an existing building. It requires a special exception.
Okay. Thank you. Motion to approve, to move to public hearing by Commissioner Noonan. Second by Commissioner McAleese. Any questions? Commissioner Francis?
Do you know which dorm it is? Mr. Did they mention?
I do, but if I could recall that, I would be happy to share it with you.
There are a lot of
It's one of the original 4 quad dorms, not one of the newer dorms. It's, if you're familiar, I don't know you are, the university.
Gonzaga, Loyola, Canisius.
I want to say Canisius.
All right, I just wondered. Thank you.
Good. Any other questions? All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay. 2C is moved to public hearing unanimously. Next is 391, 397 Commerce Drive. Special permit application of 391 Commerce Drive LLC to demolish an existing 2-family dwelling and expand existing restaurant in the design residence district.
So that's incorrect. That should be DI. That should be a DID there.
DI, designed industrial.
That's my mistake.
And I think there was a design residence.
Yeah,
in
that should be
Commerce
a
Drive.
that should be a DID. That's a
DID, okay.
This existing site is home to the Little Goose Restaurant on Commerce Drive, and adjacent to it is an existing 2-family house that they're looking to demolish to make room to realign their driveway to allow for a modest addition to the restaurant building itself.
Okay. The 2-family dwelling disappearing?
Correct.
All right.
It is a special permit, does require public hearing.
Okay, can I have a motion? Motion to move to public hearing by Commissioner McAleese, second by Commissioner Corcoran. McAleese and Corcoran. Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oh, we have a question.
Is that house qualified for affordable housing?
It may with respect to the rents that it may command, but unless it's deed restricted for a period of 40 years, it doesn't count towards any kind of point total.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, then 2D is moved to public hearing unanimously. Okay, old business. 3A, 41 Fairfield Beach Road, special exception application of Fairfield Beach Club, Inc. pertaining to a kitchen addition in the A zone.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this was heard at our last meeting. It's a fairly small addition to their kitchen of 5, I want to say it's 5 by 20 something feet. It's on the same footprint as some existing sidewalk area. It's not encroaching any closer to the water than the existing building, and it meets all of the RA zone requirements.
Very good. Thank you. Entertain a motion on this?
A motion to approve.
Okay. Motion to approve by Commissioner Corcoran and second by Commissioner Levy. Corcoran and Levy. Good. Commissioner Corcoran?
I didn't see any problem with this application. It seems to meet the rules, and there was no objection.
Excellent. Commissioner Levy, any comments?
It also made for safer.
Can you use your mic? Use your mic.
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you.
It also made for a safer work environment, so I'd approve.
Yeah. Very good. Any comments down this end of the table?
No.
No? Yeah. I agree. This is a very good application. All the beach club applications are very good. Pretty straightforward. Oh, that's true. Yeah, there was the one controversial one with the lens site. That's true. Yeah. But this one was pretty straightforward. Okay. Ready to vote? Motion is to approve. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay. 3A is approved unanimously. I'll call 3B and C, Kings Highway together so you can summarize those together, but I think we ought to vote on those separately. Zoning regulation amendment and a request at 1375 Kings Highway LLC to amend 13.4.9 of the zoning regulations and 1375, 1399 Kings Highway, 777 Commerce Drive and 26 Frank Street. Request for a TODP designation and special permit application of 1375 Kings Highway LLC for a mixed-use 160-unit residential and commercial development in the Design Commercial District and the Commerce Drive Area Design District.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, there are several facets to this application. The first, as you note, is a proposed regulation amendment that proposes to modify the average grade calculation, which is the starting point or base of our height calculation. The existing site grades range from elevation 32 in front of 777 Commerce Drive to elevation 16 in the lower part of the site adjacent to Constant Comment Way. The grade of the interior portion of this site is below the grade of Kings Highway, Commerce Drive, and Ash Creek Boulevard. The applicant is therefore proposing to amend section 13.14.9.1 to allow the average grade calculation to be taken from the average curb elevation of the fronting street, which in this case is Ash Creek Boulevard, rather than within a 10-foot radius or perimeter of the proposed building. This proposed language mirrors the language that the Commission adopted in section 21.16.10.2, which is the Transportation and Commercial Park District regulations for the Metro Center project because of its frontage on the same street, Ash Creek Boulevard. And it takes into consideration the relative height of the building from the road rather from the site elevation, which is below the road. The second aspect of this application is a determination for eligibility of the site for transit-oriented development park designation. When this commission adopted those regulations in 2011, this site was identified among those for initial eligibility. Section 13.14.1 of the regulations indicates the purpose of the transit-oriented development park within the Commerce Drive Area Design District is to enable the development of a transit-supportive mixed-use neighborhood within walking distance of commuter rail transit of a scale and design that is appropriate to the existing neighborhood context and to the character of the town, consistent with the goals and policies and locations recommended within the Plan of Conservation and Development. This proposal involves 5 existing parcels that comprise 4.66 acres. The applicant is proposing to revise the parcel boundaries and consolidate the site into 3 parcels within the Transit-Oriented Development Park designation overlay, which would encompass the entirety of the site as a single development with the design requirements applying to the development as a whole unified plan. The third aspect of this application is a special permit application for the overall site development. There are two existing office buildings on this site, 1375 Kings Highway and 777 Commerce Drive. A 8,557 square foot ground floor infill addition is proposed for the 1375 Kings Highway building, and a new mixed-use commercial and residential building is proposed with 184,059 square feet of occupied space. Of that, 13,109 square feet is retail and 170,950 square feet is residential. These areas are exclusive of the proposed structured parking. The total size of the overall development, again, including the office buildings, including the existing office buildings, and exclusive of structured parking, is 277,312 square feet. Of that, the commercial and retail square footage is 106,362 feet, or 38.4% of the total area, and the residential square footage is 170,950 square feet, which is 61.6%. This complies with the standards of section 13.14.4, which limits the residential occupancy to 70%. So 61%, just under 62% proposed. A total of 216 bedrooms are proposed on the 4.66 acres, which is 46.4 bedrooms per acre, which is below the maximum density of 50 bedrooms per acre. The 160 residential units break down as follows. There are 20 studios, 68 one-bedroom units, 16 one-bedroom units with a den, and 56 with two bedrooms. The units range in size from 580 to 1,041 square feet. Our regulations require that 10% or 16 of those units be below market rate units. The affordability plan proposes that those units would be distributed across the 4 residential floors, with the second floor having 3 one-bedroom units and 1 two-bedroom unit. The third floor having 1 studio, 2 one-bedroom, and 2 two-bedroom units. And the fourth floor having 2 one-bedroom, 1 two-bedroom, and the fifth floor containing 1 studio, 2-bedroom, and 1 two-bedroom. So they're mixing the unit types and dispersing them throughout all the floors. The overall development requires 542 parking spaces. 612 are proposed, which is 75 spaces above the minimum. 3 existing curb cuts are to be eliminated. Streetscape improvements are proposed in accordance with the regulations, and substantial pedestrian and bicycle amenities are proposed to enhance the pedestrian access through this site and to better interface with the adjacent train station facility. Question was raised at the hearing with regard to the below market rate units access to the amenities in the project. The affordable housing plan provides that the affordable units will have the same, all the amenities that are provided free of charge or are bundled as a mandatory package for all the tenants, and that's expected to include 1 unassigned parking space, access to the fitness center and club room, and indoor-outdoor recreational facilities, but not including additional parking spaces, out-of-unit storage space, or rental of the club room for private parties or any other amenity that a unit owner would need to pay an extra fee for. The considerations for the special permit are found in section 25.7.7. Is this development shown on the site and architectural plans of such character as to harmonize with the neighborhood, to accomplish the transition in character between areas of unlike character, to protect property values in the neighborhood, preserve and enhance the appearance and beauty of the community, and avoid undue traffic congestion? So, as was noted earlier, there's really 2 components to this. The first is the regulation amendment that would alter the height calculation, and the second being a finding with respect to the transit-oriented park designation along with the special permit application. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have at this point.
Okay, that's it?
That's it.
All right. Very good. Well, I'm sure we have a few questions and some discussion on this, but let's get a motion on the table to begin that.
Are you putting them all together, or are we going one by one?
No, I think we should deal with them separately. There's a different standard, different burden that we need to show there, unless somebody has strong feelings otherwise. Okay? Very good. So then, You have a motion there?
Yeah, move to approve the regulation amendment
Okay.
as proposed.
Motion to approve 3B zoning regulation amendment by Commissioner Noonan. No, we can't do that second. We have to do that. If we take them separately, we have to do that first because there's no way to approve the special permit or well, we couldn't do the TOPD without the regulation amendment because the site plan and the application would otherwise not comply with our regulations. So I think that order is appropriate.
I'll second it.
Okay. So motion by Commissioner Noonan, seconded by Commissioner Corcoran. Commissioner Noonan, you want to start?
Yes, the amendment seemed very fair and reasonable to me. The basis for it was based on a similar language that we have in the metro area project. So it's not like they picked something out of the air just to get a higher building or a higher parking lot. So it struck me that if this was known at the time, this type of proposal may have been included. So at that point, I mean, considering all the factors, I found it to be very fair and suggest approving the regulation amendment.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Mr. Wendt, why don't you just review what the findings we need to make for the regulation amendment? It's time and experience, master
Yes,
plan.
Yep, this time and experience in responsible planning for contemporary or future conditions reasonably indicate the need for the proposed amendment.
That's one.
You find that it's consistent with the plan of conservation and development. There's
Preserve property values.
preserve and enhance the property values, not lead to undue traffic congestion. I mean, any one of those by themselves is sufficient, but it's consistent with the regulations that we had. I
Right.
agree with you that it is consistent with what the Metro Center reg is all
Right.
about.
And those are the way we frame the four considerations under an amendment to the zoning regulations.
Yeah, and I would say that at least the time and experience certainly fits that, as now we're seeing that this type of amendment is favorable to this project.
Mhm.
Again, it's not an arbitrary picking a designation just to get a bigger building.
Mhm. Very good. Commissioner Corcoran, anything to add?
No, I agree with what Mr. Noonan said, and I think this is a reasonable outcome.
Anyone else? Yeah, I agree. As Commissioner Noonan, I think, said, now that we're seeing actual applications come into the area under the TOPD and in the Commerce Drive area, this is adapting, another regulation from the immediate area to enable the construction that we all envisioned. So, okay, anybody else? All right, motion is to approve the zoning regulation amendment 3B. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the regulation amendment is approved unanimously. So now we have to deal with the two items in 3C. Have a motion there. Get some discussion going. I think we have some conditions on this one we need to talk about.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Noonan,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Levy. Commissioner Noonan?
Question for staff. Was there a condition that we were envisioning because there was a small area parcel that was owned by the town? Was it?
They are
Overlap
showing
with the
on the
plans.
site plan some potential improvements within the right-of-way of the street formerly known as Frank Street or Timco Street. It's part of the right-of-way. It's an unimproved right-of-way. They're extending some of their plaza. That would require the subsequent review and approval by other town agencies for that to be implemented. So I don't know that it you can certainly make it a condition of your approval if you were to approve this application that those improvements shown would need to get the requisite subsequent approvals. That they would have to do that in due course anyway, but it doesn't, if you want to include that as a condition, it wouldn't hurt.
Wouldn't hurt. And can we refer that to the other?
Yeah, it would require, and that's a good point. In order to improve town land, this could be considered a referral in your, wearing your planning hat, that you think it makes sense to allow this private investment to kind of spill over onto the public space as a public improvement.
Right. So, I mean, I think as part of that, we would make that referral. Okay. All right. Any?
Do I need to amend the motion in any way?
I'm gonna get there. We got a couple of things to talk about. Any others that you?
I had a
raise?
question about just a clarification on the affordable housing with the amenities. What I heard was essentially that those in the affordable housing units would be treated the same as those in the other units with regard to free amenities or amenities that you had to pay for.
Right, their net rents would include all the amenities that come with the other units, except for the, like extra storage space, or if they want an extra parking space, any other amenity that any unit owner would pay.
That's fine, yeah.
They could, but it's their choice.
That's what I heard, but I want to double check. I have no questions beyond that. If anybody has questions, or I can get into my little...
The storage space, every unit gets a storage space, I presume, right? I mean,
There's storage within the units, but I believe within the site itself, there's some out-of-unit storage capacity that unit owners may be able to pay
Rent.
extra fee to
Yeah.
occupy.
separately.
Correct.
It's not like the other units
It's not a
get
condition of occupying the
some,
unit.
but not these. They
Right.
would get whatever.
Right.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anyone else have any issues to raise? Yep. Commissioner Levy?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there was some question about pedestrian access to the site,
Yeah.
or even through the site. The plans do note basically pedestrian access is public, circumnavigating the proposed site, and I think the developer indicated that they have no intention of interfering with, shall we say, the goat paths that develop when people find the shortest course or route to a destination. But I would like the condition being that the pedestrian access would be required, as indicated on the plans. The green areas that are listed as public pedestrian access, that would be a requirement to the plan.
Yeah, so the applicant here did make a thorough presentation, which was excellent, but included specifically pitched to us that there would be public pedestrian walkways that would allow egress through the property to the Metro Center station. And so, Mr. Wen, how can we structure a condition there that would
Well, I think
appropriately
in
reserve
line
that?
with what Commissioner Levy's suggestion is that those public accesses through the site shall be maintained as shown on the plan, and if there's going to be any future modification to that public access, they would have to bring that back and review it with this commission.
Okay.
So we can make that a condition of approval, that if circumstances change, that they need to modify that for some reason, they have an opportunity to come back and review that with this commission.
Okay, yeah, I'm thinking out loud. I don't think that we can require a private landowner to hold their property open to it is commercial, but, if there is a security issue or something, want to put up gates, they would have to come back and talk to us about modifying that plan.
I think on the whole, it's to the mutual benefit of this development and to the general public itself to have that access. I think the development is going to benefit from that more, at least as much, if not more, than the general public's availability to access the site. So I think that is going to be maintained, but again, there may be circumstances that we don't foresee that they might need to modify that in some fashion as the site develops, so, they should have the opportunity to be able to revisit that.
Okay.
But they've proposed it to be public access, so because they have done so, I think it's appropriate to set that as a condition.
Okay. Yeah. Commissioner McAleese, yeah?
Perhaps as a clarification, I'm looking at the L1 of the landscape plan. most of it seems to be pretty clearly open to the public, but there are two specific areas I can see. There's like that, it's like a tunnel, I guess. And there's another one that goes sort of through.
Breezeway.
Yeah, and there's another area that goes through Building B parking. They're both labeled proposed pedestrian access, but it doesn't say public. So maybe if they can just clarify that all pedestrian access is also public access. That might, I mean, as a tenant, I might read that as just tenant pedestrian access, not necessarily public. But if you
I
can
think,
just clarify that.
I think the only things that are segregated for tenants only are certain outside spaces adjacent to the residential piece where there's some amenities for them, there's some grilling space and
Yeah,
so
they
forth
mentioned that in the presentation.
is going to be fenced off and not accessible to the public, but the through passageways, I think, are intended to be publicly accessible.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other issues with the plans or conditions? Okay. Anyone else? I mean, those were the biggies for me. Commissioner Portman?
So is it clear, I mean, when somebody looks at this 5 years from now, is it clear what it is we're saying are the public access routes?
Well, they're marked on the materials that were the applicant submitted and presented at the public hearing with dashed lines that were identified as the pedestrian access ways. And that is what we're identifying here now as what will remain open to the public.
Okay.
So I think it is, yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner McAleese?
That drawing actually was very helpful. It wasn't part of our set, it was part of the presentation, but can that be made part of the record somehow?
Oh, it is.
It is
shows
part,
the-
it is
Oh, it
part
is
of the record.
automatically, because we didn't get it as
Yeah,
our-
it's part of the record as a submittal.
So
of
then
theirs,
there's
but-
clear paths indicated on that.
Yeah,
That was
but we
very
can have them
informative.
submit that page, or pages as part of the actual permit.
Sure.
Paperwork.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep. Good. Commissioner Levy?
Yes, perhaps just by way of clarification, I'm looking at page 18 labeled accessibility at the plan, and on it there's areas in green which are labeled pedestrian access public. Then there's areas in blue which are campus accessible routes. And then there's purple, which is bicycle access, and then there's red, pedestrian access private. My understanding from the presentation that with the exception of the pedestrian access private, these routes would be, could be traversed by the general public.
Good. Excellent explanation. All right. So, anyone else have any other conditions or issues? But otherwise, I thought this was an excellent application. Obviously, we've seen the building pretty much before. It's now built. We can actually see what it looks like. I think this does meet the requirements of the TOPD. It is of the type that we envisioned when we passed that overlay and the kind of mixed-use construction that we were seeking to incent in the Commerce Drive area. So I would encourage us all to make that finding. And then as far as the special permit application, it harmonizes with the neighborhood. It is becoming the neighborhood, you know. It certainly enhances and protects home values that are in the adjacent areas. We have a traffic report that it won't create undue traffic congestion, although, you know, the area is largely undeveloped in this way to date. And it's consistent with our plan of development, you know. So I think that with the conditions that we should pass it. We do need an amendment, so Commissioner Noonan, friendly amendment there on the referral and the condition on the improvement to the town land, as well as the condition that we discussed with regard to the pedestrian access.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Do you need me to
No,
vocalize it, or?
I think we've got that.
I think
It's
we're
by
good.
you, and I think it was Commissioner Levy, right? You
Yeah.
seconded. It's good by you.
Yes.
In addition to those conditions you've already articulated, Mr. Chairman, I would also include the I think it kind of, it's required as part of our regulation, but it will be a condition that there be a deed restriction recorded with respect to the condition of the affordable units.
Right, was that not part of
Oh, I
the plan? I
It
thought
is,
that
it's part of
was.
the affordability plan, and it's
But we just
required,
make
but
that
I-
a separate
Just
condition?
to emphasize it as a condition.
Okay.
would be
Yeah, I
recommended.
accept that condition.
All right, very good. Good. Second. All right. You know, otherwise, I didn't see any issues with the plan.
No, I agree.
Right? I mean, they've identified the units, they're interspersed throughout the building, they're on different floors. I thought that was well done. Okay? Anyone else have any comments?
Only to say that I agree with your findings for the initial eligibility of the TOD and findings needed for special permit.
Excellent. Okay?
I have a comment.
Yep. Commissioner Corcoran.
I was thinking about the traffic study, and it doesn't look like they included the intersection of Old Kings Highway with, well, I don't know what the name of it is, right where that bridge is that goes across the railroad track.
Ash Creek Boulevard. Where the bridge that goes over the,
No, not that bridge. The bridge that's near Whole Foods and...
Grassmere Avenue?
Yes.
I don't have that. What are you looking at?
Yeah, you're correct. I don't believe that was one of the...
Yeah, it's off the picture, but it's down here.
Yeah, so we've got all the turning counts and radiuses and everything. Do you think that they needed to go back further than that was already looked at?
No, I was hoping they had already considered it.
Well, I think in the,
There we go.
when the Metro Center project was ultimately done, there was quite a bit of intersection and signal improvements done as part of that development. I'd have to go back and look, but I'm pretty sure that there was along that frontage, not so much on Grassmere Avenue because the width of that road is restricted by the bridge, but there was an intersection improvement, at least on the Kings Highway leg of that that light there. And again, in conjunction with the Whole Foods development was done, that intersection got widened, at least on the Kings Highway leg of it.
It seems to me that the most direct way to go from this development to downtown is across that bridge.
To downtown Fairfield?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. So, from my perspective, I see that intersection as being a bit far afield of the site for the study in the traffic study. But I don't go to downtown Fairfield over that bridge. I go down to 95 and go down a couple exits. You don't? You really? Take that road?
Well, hopefully the folks that live in the 160 units will hop on the train and...
Well, yeah, right, there's that too. I mean, hopefully they will. But I don't think that the study of that intersection is a reason to deny the application.
No,
Do you?
I don't think it rises to that level.
Okay, all right. Any other comments on this or anything else? Okay. Motion is to approve with conditions as stated. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously. Next is 4A, compliances, 295, 930 Kings Highway, coastal site plan application in the town of Fairfield pertaining to a sidewalk improvement project in the Kings Highway corridor in the design commercial district.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this proposal contemplates some pedestrian improvements within the Kings Highway corridor from Chamber Street, which is down by the Gulf Station there at exit 24, all the way up to Villa Avenue. The project includes sidewalk improvements, new concrete curbs, ADA accessible pedestrian ramps, new road median, and other improvements. This application is on this agenda solely because portions of this corridor are within the coastal boundary. Therefore, this application is for the purpose of evaluating the proposed impact on coastal resources. We have a detailed report that was submitted with this application, and we agree that there would be no anticipated impacts on coastal resources in this project area. This project is enhancing and improving existing infrastructure and not proposing to develop an area not already occupied by hardscape. I am joined this evening by Town Engineer Bill Hurley, who is in charge of this project and who is here to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks very much, and welcome, Mr. Hurley.
Thank you. I'd just like to add that the project does include a creation of a pocket park on the north side of Route 1 between Jennings Road and Bill Avenue, a 3-foot grass strip along most of the south side, thereby reducing the impervious surfaces. The public has been involved in the project, and in fact, the neighborhood, the Fairfield Bike and Ped Committee, and several town officials started a grassroots effort to improve neighborhood accessibility, participating in the project public informational meetings and opportunities to comment via the town grant public hearings. Detailed CAM report was submitted, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Thank you. So, I note there's no negative impact on coastal inland wetland areas for the project, right?
Correct.
All right. Excellent. Yep. Mr. McAleese.
What's the park you're talking about? Is that like to the right of Walgreens there? Between the Walgreens and that little dental
Well,
office?
depending on, it's really to the, the new, yeah, right.
That one, yeah,
Right,
sorry, yeah. Go ahead.
I was thinking of
That
the
little,
old-
that weird little
Yeah,
strip
that
of
little,
land.
yep.
It's like a triangle
Yeah.
space there below.
Is that town land?
Below that big retaining wall.
That's existing town land? Is that currently town land?
That's actually state land, but
Oh,
we have
state.
permission to do the park.
Oh, terrific.
That's not at Walgreens, though, it's at the bowling alley.
No, the other wall, the new wall.
Yeah, I did the same.
Across from the border, right? Right on the corner of Jennings.
When I looked at it, I thought it was at,
You thought it was what?
It's the old Brown Brothers, if
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
an old
Yeah.
timer.
So if you're going towards this Villa Avenue,
Yeah,
on
right.
Kings Highway,
Yeah, it's a little bit to the east of Walgreens.
Yeah.
It's below the retaining
Border
wall
that's on
that's
the
at the
right.
bowling alley.
Right, exactly.
oh, right, okay.
I think you're both describing the
Yeah,
same.
in the middle.
yeah. Okay.
I have a few questions.
Yep, Commissioner Francis.
On page 1 here, what does narrower roadway, what's getting narrowed?
The Route 1 curbs are getting narrowed in a little bit, and the reason for that is, as I said, on the south side to create a grass strip, and on the north side to meet handicap accessibility. A lot of the utility poles, and there's a couple of the postal mailboxes like the size of the podium there, that are in the way, and you have to have a 4-foot clearance in between objects, so they had to bring the curb in.
Okay. And the grass strip is being created where, on which side,
On the south side,
which is what? The
there's a...
Walgreens side?
No, the other side.
No, the other
The
side,
other
yeah, where a
side.
couple of the delis are.
Oh, yeah, all right. Then, on the next page, in the middle of the big paragraph, a reconstructed stormwater drainage system will be installed in conjunction with this construction. Now, where's that? Digging up the street?
I'm losing you a little bit on...
Page 2, that large paragraph. After Connecticut Deep,
Oh, the stormwater, that was mainly a condition by the Connecticut Department of Transportation to add a couple of catch basins on Route 1.
okay. And Route 1 is what, this road?
The Kings Highway, yeah. I'm
State.
sorry.
So you're not doing major construction, you're just installing a couple of catch basins?
Yeah, where, like, if there's a catch basin over there, they might be putting one relatively nearby. There's a couple of corners where they puddle a little bit,
Yeah,
so
it's
we'll be
very-
adding extra basin
Very
there.
flood
Right.
over there, yeah. Okay. Let's see. The bottom of page 3, There is one older segment from 1939 of the state drainage system that splits into two pipes, blah, blah, blah. Why aren't we replacing those? Or
it's-
is it not necessary to replace an 80-year-old pipe? What's it made out of, clay?
Again, that's a state drainage system. As far as we know, the condition, when we had the surveyors go out, it was a consultant surveyors, they didn't see any problem with it.
Oh, very good.
And typically, if there's enough cover on a pipe and it hasn't been touched, and there's no roots or anything to harm it, then it's still okay.
All right, but they did test it. Okay. I think I had one more.
Okay.
One more. On the next page 5, the top paragraphs. Future plans may consist of hiking trails that will provide public access to overlook wetland environment. Where would those be if they're done?
Mainly along the, like conservation, wetland setback, in those areas there. And that's, in like a master plan of, at some point, the town has a sanitary sewer that runs along the Rooster River. And, yeah, and with rising, sea level and all other situations, if the town ever relocated that, that would provide an opportunity to maybe do a small, trail network along the wetland area. And so the improved sidewalks that we're proposing, now, would give you that opportunity to get closer to nature, so to speak.
Okay, and that would be at the end of these streets, Hibiscus and...
Oh, yeah, and again, it'd be a potential, but this would increase the potential if that were ever to happen. It's separate from this plan, of course, but by increasing sidewalk and accessibility, you'd have that opportunity if a project was ever implemented. And obviously, the main point is going the opposite direction. Obviously, the sidewalks will increase, opportunities for people to walk to the Metro Center.
Yeah, hopefully. Then the next page, nearshore coastal waters, or the substrat lying between the mean high water depth and the 10-meter contour. What's a 10-meter contour?
That's
It's a
just,
very
it's a
tiny-
it's a standard, it's in the CAM report book that we have. A meter is roughly 3.28 feet, and so it's probably like the 30-foot mark of an elevation.
Oh, above
Yeah.
the high water?
Right, yeah.
Oh, okay, I never heard that term before.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
one from the coastal resource book.
Okay. Okay. All right, thank you. That should be it.
Oh, sure, no problem at all.
So you mentioned that there were public hearings, public involvement, right?
That's correct, yep.
Were there any members of the public that were critical or had issues with the proposed plan?
The only let me start off back. The public hearings actually went way back to 2013, and that grassroots effort really helped us out. The state was impressed at the attendance at one of them. I think we had 26 people, which for a public information meeting isn't too bad. Everybody was in favor of the sidewalks and had no issues on that. Not opening a Pandora's box, but there are a couple spots where we will be taking away parking.
On Kings Highway?
Yeah, on Kings
the
Highway,
public, right.
correct. But if you drive there right now, I would say at least 80, if not 90% of Kings Highway has no parking anyway, so.
Did you hear members of the public object to that aspect of the plan?
There were two, to be honest with you. One was the church, and they were just concerned that they'd be able to have parking there. That's something that we were working, or we hope to work with the police department, and somehow maybe on Saturday, again, Sunday morning, I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue, but Saturday afternoon or something like that, we are going to try to work with the police and see if there's a way that we could allow parking. The main problem that we have is that you can't narrow go from 2 lanes down to 1 in the area, and the state highway, Route 1, is under the jurisdiction of the Connecticut Department of Transportation.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they do allow on special events or circumstances that, like, for instance, a mass, that they will allow some local input to resolve that problem. So we would be working on that. And then the other was a gentleman actually right next door to them who leases or rents out the house there to tenants. And he originally was against it, but then realized that, it was for the betterment of everybody. I mean, in that area there, his sidewalk's only like 3 foot wide, so he totally understands why on the project there. And on that one, the one thing that he did ask was that if he had to increase his parking area up at top of the hill, it's like a little hill there, would we have any objections to it? And basically I said that the engineering department would have, provided obviously met all our conditions, we'd have no objections to it. And he seemed happy with that, or at least satisfied. So those were the only 2 issues that we came across.
Okay. Very good. So we're in compliance, right? Does anyone else have any other questions? Commissioner Francis?
Are the medians going to be as wide as they are now?
They might be, they're probably about the same size, maybe like 6 inches narrower. We tried to get them eliminated, but the DOT said no, we couldn't do
Oh, I
that.
love them.
So, and then
Because you have to cut through all the time to get places.
they will be in concrete. We're going to have it in stamped or a little bit of a decorative concrete.
Harder for me to get over. Are
On
they
a
gonna
rainy
have as
night, they
many-
are tough to see right now, no doubt about it.
Well, that's true too. Are there as many cut-throughs as there are now?
Yeah, there's no proposals that I'm aware of to reduce or increase the number.
Thank you again.
Okay. Anyone else have any other questions? All right. So I think our options now are to motion to approve. If anyone thinks that we need to have a public hearing on this, it's in our discretion to move it to public hearing. That would put it over to another agenda. We would have a public hearing, and then it would be put on the next agenda for us to consider after that in an executive session. So unless somebody has some significant concerns, I think we ought to consider the application on the merits.
I'll move to approve.
Okay. Motion to approve by Commissioner Francis, second by Commissioner Noonan. Anybody else have any other comments or questions? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the compliance is passed unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Early. Really appreciate you coming down. Okay, next is 4B, 238 Post Road, application of Dean Canone for seasonal outdoor dining in the Design Commercial District.
Mr. Chairman, this is the restaurant formerly occupied by, last occupied, I should say, by Michael Gennaro's Steakhouse on the east side of the Post Road. The patio is within an existing building overhang and will maintain at least a 3-foot wide pedestrian clear path between the seating. There's a post that kind of holds up that overhang. You have a kind of a hand-drawn map there. They're proposing 150 square feet. It does not require any additional parking under our regulations. We would recommend, if this is going to go forward, the same standard conditions, that all outdoor seating is subject to annual recertification, certain time, furniture removed in the off-season, and so forth.
Okay, thank you. So just to be clear, well, I guess we need get a motion on the table here. Sorry, who was that? Noonan. Motion to approve by Commissioner Noonan. Second by Commissioner Corcoran. I have a question before we get started here. The pictures that are in the last couple of pages
The first,
showing the railing are of...
yeah. The first picture is just the storefront as it presently exists.
Yeah.
Or the first two, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
The third picture is the picture of a wooden railing that's currently in front of the castle on post. I think that's the style, those two pictures.
To show the style of the proposed...
Yeah, they're proposing the wooden railing fastened in with the metal fasteners at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And the last picture, I believe, is the existing seating, that area, it's a Craft 260,
Craft,
which is at the opposite end of the plaza.
Right, opposite end of this facility.
Correct.
Yep. So now Kraft does not have the throughway for the pedestrian traffic because they're an end unit, right? This one is not,
Right.
and so,
Well, it is an end unit. They're on the opposite end.
They're on the opposite corner.
Yeah.
the
They are,
opposite side of the
correct.
development.
If you're looking at the building,
Right, it is on the
260
end.
is the far left tenant. This would be
Yeah.
the far rightmost tenant.
Of the left building, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, on the sketch, then, on the left-hand side, this 6 feet,
Mhm.
that's a fully enclosed area specific to the restaurant,
Right.
and that railing still permits 3 foot 2 inches of pedestrian walkway in between the railing and the post on the sidewalk.
Correct. Yeah, it's a wider distance on either side of that post, but minimum 3'2"
Okay,
clearance through.
excellent. All right, those are my questions and clarifications on the plan. Anyone else have any questions for staff?
I just have one, and it's minor, because it's really just at that structural column, but is that handicap accessible, that clearance of 3'2"?
Yeah, they need
Can
a
you get
minimum of
wheelchairs through
36
there?
inches.
Okay, good. That's all.
And the applicant actually makes that representation, handicap accessible.
5 feet.
Commissioner Corcoran?
So, where the seating is, it shows the railing making a turn back towards the restaurant entrance.
Mhm.
Is there any problem with handicap accessibility to those tables? Or is that not necessary?
I don't know the answer to that question about it being required by code, but I would think that they would certainly want to accommodate that. So they would need 3 feet there. I mean, the 5-foot width in and out is certainly wide enough. So your question is...
Just to get around
clear
get
that?
around the rail.
Yeah,
to
I
get
mean,
to
we
the
can
table.
certainly ensure that that's a requirement, that it would be...
To the
Yeah,
right.
because they could just eliminate that part of the rail.
Yeah.
Yeah, to the right especially.
Yeah.
To the left.
'Cause the way it's drawn,
Yeah, I don't think that those tables are drawn into scale.
but there's plenty of room.
Yeah, so I think there's room enough to accommodate that.
Anyone else? Okay. So this would be, the motion on the table is to approve with our standard conditions, correct?
Yes,
correct.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Compliance passes unanimously with conditions. Okay. Very good. Next, on for public hearing. So let's take a 2-minute break while we just reconfigure for that, and then we'll get started with the public hearing. Call the meeting back to order. Thanks, guys.
My what?
Next item is 226 Old Post Road, zoning compliance application of Equinox Fitness Club for a monument sign in the Design Industrial District.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Good evening. For the record, I'm John Fallon. I'm here tonight representing Equinox on this particular application, and we do appreciate the Commission's willingness to hear this at public hearing. I do have some graphics on the board, but I present this, I'll just have it, pass these down, but I did make up sets of exactly what they've seen on the board, so I'll ask, there are four exhibits here.
Thank you. Are these different from what we have in our packet?
They may be, yes. Certainly, I think they may be more illustrative than what you have in your package.
Okay.
This is an application for a certificate of zoning compliance to establish a ground sign located as shown on the A2 survey that you do have that was submitted to you. We make this application pursuant to the provisions of section 29.8.1 of the zoning regulations, which provide that by a 2/3 vote of the commission, a ground sign may be extended within the street line setback at your discretion. The sign is proposed, by the way, will comply in all other respects with the requirements of your zoning regulations, and specifically section 29. We sought no variances for the size of the sign. It's totally compliant. Now, if you look at the first exhibit, which is this one here, the dated accumulation plan for the old Southport Racket Club, you'll note that for many, many decades, the sign that we all knew and saw relative to the Southport Racket Club was, in fact, not even located on the property in question. It was encroaching and trespassing, whatever words you want to use, in the town right-of-way. So the first exhibit is the then existing conditions, which shows that the sign was located off the property in the town right-of-way, immediately adjacent to the old Post Road street line. This encroaching condition has been eliminated, and the location of the proposed ground sign, based upon the survey you have, would be totally on our property. And so we're eliminating that nonconformity. We are imploring you and respectfully requesting you to consider the problem that we face. That leads to the second exhibits, the second and third exhibits, which are the colored Google photographs. If we were to not receive relief from you with regard to the ground sign, as you can do here under section 29.8.1, the upper exhibit shows you this is where the sign, the ground sign, which would comply with the regulations, would have to go in order to comply with the 25-foot setback. It would literally have to go in the middle of the parking lot, distant from the entrance and the exit, and really be of no value whatsoever. We drew some sight lines so you could see that between vegetation and whatnot, we'd simply not have a ground sign that we would otherwise be entitled to and that otherwise would comply with the regs. On the other hand, the lower is an illustration of where the ground sign would be located totally on our property if you do grant the variance, the waiver. And as you can see, it's well situated right in the center island that separates the two driveway entrance and exits. It has good visibility with regard to comings and going on the Post Road. It's important, we believe, that this property owner, who's made a very significant investment here, have the same rights under the regulations as anyone would to an otherwise compliant, functional ground sign. Not a lot different than what you looked at some months ago with Bigelow T, where a similar application for a ground sign and a request that you waive the 25-foot setback under section 29.8.1 was made and approved. It also has a convenience and safety element relative to customers and patrons. Yes, we are going to have a compliant wall sign, as we're allowed to do, but that wall sign is on the wall of the building, and the building is set back significantly from the road. So one of the reasons we have ground signs is to advise people, especially motorists, of the location of a specific property they're looking for. which is not far-fetched here, where not only are you going to have regular members, but you're going to have guests coming to play some with a member and so on and so forth. So we think it's reasonable, we think it makes sense. Because effectively, if you don't grant the waiver, we don't have any ground sign. Because we can't put a ground sign in the middle of the parking lot. And here, the ground sign makes perfect sense, located on that island right here. And in addition, as I said, we are removing the encroaching design. The letter that I received just now from Mr. Wendt, that apparently was delivered to his office about 5:15 today from the Southport Conservancy, I think respectfully requires two responses. One is there's a reference to the scale and scope of the proposed sign design. Well, the scale and scope are totally compliant with your regulations. The only issue here is the location. And then the second is a more aesthetic issue with regard to the sign and its design. And I know that was a comment that some of the commissioners had when this matter was received and sent to public hearing. Let me address that, if I may. First of all, technically, we don't have an architecture review board for signage, but more importantly, this commission worked very constructively with this applicant, of which we are most appreciative, to design a building that is nearing completion. The building, as approved, is a fait accompli, and I think when completed is going to be very attractive, and it's going to have a very strong influence, a positive influence in terms of Fairfield's economic vitality and the vitality of Fairfield's economy. The sign that was designed and is before you is designed aesthetically to mimic and harmonize with the design of the building that you've already approved. Said another way, it really wouldn't make sense or be in character with what we've already approved to have a white picket two-poster fence that I might have if as some of them do up the street, if I had a law office or a dental office and so on. We're trying to come up with a sign that is appropriate for this site plan. Certainly.
So I think that the aesthetic review comes into play because you're asking for a waiver of what otherwise would be a setback that would put the sign well into your property where, admittedly, as you point out, there isn't an aesthetic review of that. But when you're asking to move the sign basically to the edge of the road, you get into a perception of whether the sign harmonizes with the rest of the neighborhood, and that's when the neighbors come out and say, we like, we don't like, we don't want you to waive the requirement that it be set back because we don't like what it looks like. So I think from a rational perspective, the two do sort of correlate.
Well, my response,
Okay.
my response to that would be,
And
you're-
Bigelow T, by the way, was waived because they didn't have a view once the trademark building was put up,
Well,
and
I
it
think
blocked the
that's-
sign.
I think that's a somewhat analogous situation to what we have here.
Do you think people are gonna not know where that building is?
I think people may not know what that building is. I think people driving down the Old Post Road at 25 or 30 miles an hour looking for that building and not coming here where they can see in and see the building might very much appreciate, as a matter of convenience and vehicular safety, knowledge that, oh yeah, this is Equinox. And let me say this about the sign. I will say what I said before.
Oh, I wasn't speaking to the merits of the position. I was merely identifying the logic
I understand.
of the aesthetic review.
Let me address the logic to the extent that that was raised. This is not an unattractive sign. This is a sign that harmonizes with the character of the building that you approved. It's a sign that will blend well with the character of the building that you approved. Somebody said in this letter, well, we can't turn back the clock. I'm glad we can't, because I think that this building is going to be beautifully attractive and make a statement about the kind of business climate that we have here in Fairfield. But that business climate message, at a time when I think it's important we send it, is going to be somewhat negated if we say, but yeah, we're not gonna give you the waiver of the sign because you either have to put it in the parking lot or you don't have it. And oh, by the way, we think your sign is to whatever, it's not really clear here, modernistic, whatever, even though we approved the building that you just showed. So, I mean, you're gonna make the decision, but.
Fair enough. I mean, what about, you know, a marker? If you're concerned about people finding the number of the building, what about a marker?
What do you mean by marker?
Rather than such a large monument sign, a marker that just has the number 260 on it.
Well, the sign under your regulations will have to have the street address on it, but a number does not address the tenant and the use of the sign. I mean, I just think it's unfortunate that at a time when we're really stressing matters that relate to economic vitality, we have a situation here where this commission has acted so positively in terms of the rehabilitation of this site, bringing in a really nationally well-regarded tenant, a building that you have in front of you that was approved and is near completion, and now we're talking about whether or not they should have, based upon the location of the sign, a meaningful and functional ground sign to which they're otherwise entitled, based upon its size and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I'm not speaking to the merits, but a ground sign is not required.
But it's allowed, and
It's allowed within the setback.
Right, well, that's your decision. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna,
I mean-
Mr. Chairman, all the respect in the world for you, you know that.
Yeah.
We're not have defense about it. It speaks for itself. Are they entitled to a ground sign, or are they not? And second question, is the ground sign somehow inappropriate to the building that you've already approved, so that that becomes a basis not to grant the waiver of the setback which you've granted in the past in other similar situations? That's your decision. But we're hopeful
Attorney
that
Fowler.
after consideration, you might grant the
Commissioner
waiver.
Noonan?
Thank
Mr.
you.
Noonan.
You presented for the building, right, the application for the building?
I did.
Because the question I have, for anybody really remembers, was there any complaints about the style of the building at that time?
To my recollection, there was not. I don't think there was.
I don't remember either. I just, because when I read the letter and he said he couldn't go back time, I questioned that because
No.
I don't remember anything at the time.
I know, the
No,
questions. that-
Regardless, that was for my own edification, but has your client considered alternatives? Is there any other sign that could go where you want it to go that's not monument sign? There are other styles of sign that could go there?
I'm not, I mean, we want a ground sign, I guess, and I'm hopefully you'll approve this one, but if you don't, we'd need some direction from you, because we've come up with a sign that, A, complies with the regs, B, that we think is attractive and harmonizes with the building.
Understood, but-
If you have guidance,
Yeah, and you framed it, and you have framed it in the way that works for your argument. It harmonizes with the building.
it does.
But the comment, and I think what there might be, you might understand to be some reaction, is that it doesn't exactly harmonize with the neighborhood, the surroundings.
The hotel across the street, the restaurant across the street, the restaurant next door to us, I'm missing something.
And those signs are in a more New England style sign.
But the buildings are more New England. I mean, we could go back, you didn't approve a New England building, so why do you want a New England sign?
I didn't say I did.
I understand that.
We're talking about the
I didn't
issues.
mean to be provocative. I apologize.
We're talking about the issues.
I'm
And-
trying-
Okay.
it would
Commissioner
be-
Levy?
Attorney Collins, let's see on the plan, the sign is in close proximity Now I'm on. Attorney Fallon, I noticed that the sign, as you propose, is in close proximity to the sidewalk on the pictures. Is that an existing, crosswalk? Is that an existing crosswalk?
Yes, and the crosswalk is part of your approval.
Right.
It's part of the approval that was mandated when the site plan was approved. It's
And
on the actual sign as we propose it, we put on that island, which will separate the ingress and egress driveways.
so it would alert motorists that there's something there, and as well as the crosswalk there.
Yes?
Commissioner Francis?
Did you already put the word Equinox on the building?
Well, we will have the right to put a wall sign on the building, yes.
Well,
I
perhaps,
don't know if it's been done, I don't think it's been done yet.
No, I mean, at least from the last time I drove past, I don't think the sign's on the building yet.
But we will have a wall sign.
perhaps if you put it up higher, it would solve the problem.
Well, I don't think that works, because the sign as currently placed, first, we don't have a lot of room to elevate the sign. Secondly, I'd have to check the regs whether that were even theoretically possible. But the issue is the wall sign doesn't solve the identity problem. It doesn't provide a motorist looking for the place for the first time,
Yeah, I understand that.
as they're here or here, or I should say, as they're here or here, with identification that, oh, here's Equinox on my right, or here's Equinox on my left. The building's back here. They'll know, they'll see the wall sign when they turn in the driveway.
Okay.
That's all I got.
And just for clarification for everyone, that it's, this rendering here with the sign on the building is a rendering. We haven't approved a wall sign, a building sign yet, have we, Mr. Nguyen?
Jim went for the record. No, you have not, but it's not necessarily required. There were two existing wall signs for the previous
For the Racket Club,
building that they can replace in kind without returning.
without having to come back here.
That's
So
correct.
those, I think, were a little bit
They
higher
were, well,
on the building.
The one on the post road side was, the one on the, I don't see your drawing
Yeah.
there, but it can't be above the first floor level.
Can't be above the first floor, right?
That's the problem with a significant
I mean, it could be modestly higher than that, but it really couldn't be above that.
The first awning,
Correct.
yeah, okay, very good. All right. Anyone else have any questions? Sure, Commissioner Mack.
Did you know if your client looked into other styles? I totally get the
Yeah, I
argument that,
mean, I heard, and therefore, let's be, I heard some of the comments that were made relative at the time that the matter was accepted, and then pursuant to my request, which I appreciate, placed for public hearing. And I shared that with the client, and we did consider that. We looked at it, but at the end of the day, what we came up with, and we're hoping you will agree with, is that it doesn't make a lot of sense to put a colonial-type sign.
well, I don't know that anybody's asking for that specific, so like you made a decent argument before, where you said you have a New England building with the Delamar across the street.
Right.
And I just happened to pull up their sign on Google Maps, by the way. The sign is probably 30 inches by 30 inches for a humongous building. So I wonder if there's some way, a change of scale. It could still be a wooden sign that maybe had a gray and black scheme. I don't know. I mean, I actually like what you've presented, but I can see the argument about the neighborhood. Maybe there's some middle ground you could find between the two.
Well, I mean,
Doesn't have to be a white picket fence.
yeah, look, all I would say, again, without being redundant, is I hope you'll look at this sign in the context of the building you've already approved. I hope you'll look at it in the context of a very thankful and grateful corporate citizen who spent a boatload of bucks bringing this to Southport rather than Westport or other places they could have brought it. And I hope you'll look at the fact that it complies with all your regulations, except for the setback, and I hope you'll look at the provisions of 29.8.1 that give you that opportunity to say, hey, look, on balance, this just doesn't make sense. And we are not an architectural review board, and this sign is not really out of character with the building, and it really is not out of character with the neighborhood. I mean, the neighborhood is an evolving neighborhood with some very nice uses, and that you'll grant the application. If you don't,
Then maybe there's something to
give us
talk
some
about.
guidance.
We understand. I think we got it.
I think I got it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Are there any members of the public that wish to be heard on this item?
No, you're okay, as long as you're okay. You do have to be public.
My name is Alice Stokes, and I live in Southport at 37 Christmas Tree Lane. And before I begin, I just want you all to make sure that we're all looking at the same sign, that Equinox is proposing. Okay, you've even got a better rendition. As a longtime resident of Southport, and that goes over 40 years, I've watched as various efforts by developers and businesses have tried to change the character, either knowingly or unknowingly, of our New England village. Across the street, as we've heard, from the Equinox Sports Facility is the Southport Village Green. It's a development, and along with the Delamar Hotel. All their buildings are in keeping with the architectural style of their neighboring New England homes. They were respectful of their neighbors when building their structures. When it comes to the Equinox ground sign, which is being proposed, which will sit on the property line adjacent to the town's newly to be installed sidewalk, we have a distinctly different concept being employed. Its block design is more suitable, from my perspective, for a Fortune 500 corporate office building. Unfortunately, Equinox has not tried to fit in or blend with the surrounding community with their industrial style sign. Their design is ill-suited for our area. You can see from the pictures that I took that the Equinox sign in Darien, Connecticut, which is a white sign, and the sign in Greenwich, which relates to an ultra-modern building up the drive, that they are more in keeping with their environments. Therefore, I ask that the ground sign that's being promoted and promoting the Equinox be redesigned to better fit the character of the buildings in the surrounding area. Lastly, according to your regulations 2913, the sign should also include the street number of the premises, which will then impact the size of the letters on the ground sign. Therefore, I ask that a new sign be submitted that will not only complement, but will enhance the aesthetics of our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Any other members of the public wish to be heard?
Good evening, Commissioners. Jack Iams, speaking on behalf of the Sasquatch Village Improvement Association of Southport. We strongly oppose the current design and size of the sign. I speak on behalf of the association and the neighbors. While the sign may meet most of your standards, it clearly does not harmonize with the neighborhood. While we welcome Equinox to the neighborhood and the community, the current design and size of the sign is appropriate for a corporate office park, but not for the entrance to our small village and community, historic village and community. We request that you deny approval of this design. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else wish to be heard?
First, I want to thank you all for the time that you put in on this and a lot of other matters that are so important to the town of Fairfield. I'm Margaret Zellers. I live at 95 Main Street in Southport, in the house where I grew up, as I've mentioned to you the last time I spoke before you. I have watched in my lifetime in Southport the encroachment. The little village is going to be pushed into the sea. First, the Post Road has lots more traffic than it ever had. I-95 comes through, and the buildings that are in that area are the welcome to the historic village of Southport. It is so important that the entry to the village be in keeping with what is in the village. The sign, my colleagues have spoken, is certainly out of character for the village. The sign at Del Mar and the Grey Goose has had no trouble gaining traffic, and it has an almost indistinguishable sign. The building, the Equinox building, is not going to be my favorite building. Equinox is a wonderful organization, but I respect the town's need for tax rolls, and the increased size certainly will help with that. I wish that it had been a different design. I don't know whether the Equinox people had any neighborhood hearing. If they did, I did not know of it, and nor did anyone else at that point. So it was a big surprise to many of us that it is as large as it is. The sign, you have in front of you the pictures that Allo took of the other places that does show you another type of sign that we believe would be more presentable and in keeping with the neighborhood. Southport is a treasure for all of Fairfield and its visitors. And it is so important. We are only custodians of this. That Southport's going to last longer than any of us in this room, and it is up to us to maintain and to enhance the atmosphere that that little village brings to all of us. So thank you for hearing my comments, and I hope you'll reconsider the sign. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Any other members of the public wish to be heard on this item? No? Okay. Mr. Fallon,
Yeah,
rebuttal?
I'll be brief because I think my comments, I don't want to be redundant. I appreciate great fondness for Ms. Stokes and Ms. Zellers, and I don't know Mr. Irons as well, but I respect their comments. But again, I would come back to what I said before. The sign is not going to change the character of our village, okay? If you can like or not like the design that was approved of the building, but the building is there. And it's going to have a positive influence on the village and on the town as a whole, but that sign is not going to change the character of the village. And the design of the sign might not be suitable for certain other places in Southport, on Main Street or somewhere else, but it is suitable for this location and for this significant major development that you have approved and that is soon to open. Southport Village is important. Mr. Irons said the design and the size of the sign are not appropriate. Well, the size of the sign I've commented on. They have a right to a ground sign, not at that location, but the size of the sign should not be an issue because it complies with your reg. The only issue here is whether you want that sign in the middle of the parking lot or to have some functional value here. So I just hope, without being argumentative, everyone will take a look at the fact that we have a building that has been approved. It has a specific design. It has a certain cutting-edge feel to it that I think is going to be attractive. And the sign should be in character with what's been approved architecturally and need not diminish the village because it announces the presence of a building here that's already been approved and is consistent with that. And as I said, we would hope you'd consider all that and approve the sign as being consistent with the building, and most importantly, not lose sight of the fact that we do need, respectfully, your exercise of your discretion, because we should be able to have a ground sign. And we won't have a ground sign under these circumstances that'll provide any function, convenience, or safety to our patrons if it has to be located 25 feet off the setback. We thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. I will close the public hearing on this item. Next item is 1865 Blackrock Turnpike, special permit application of Katona Corners LLC pertaining to an addition to an existing building in the design commercial district.
Jim, do you want? Thank
You have those smaller. I don't think that's everything you know everything.
Dave, where's your? Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. For the record, I'm John Fallon. I'm here representing Katona Corners LLC. With me tonight is Mr. Ken Kleban of Katona Corner LLC and our architect, Mr. David Wojtowicz of Franz and Associates. We've talked about signs. Let's talk about bread and cookies. I think we're all entitled to talk about bread and cookies. Simple application. The rendering is here. Should you have any questions of Mr. Wojtowicz, in the interest of your time, I'm not going to have him make a full presentation, but what we seek is for permission to enclose an existing patio area that's been there for many decades to be used for the benefit of the patrons of Billy's Bakery. I don't have to say too much, I don't think, about Billy's Bakery. It's an iconic retail landmark in Fairfield. Its breads, cookies, cakes, pastries has really made Billy's a very uniquely successful and enthusiastically supported business by a lot of loyal customers for many decades. One of the things that they do at Billy's, as you may know, is in addition to its bakery items, they do provide over-the-counter coffee service to complement those bakery items. And as you may have observed, as I certainly have been a part of it in the past sometimes, it's not uncommon during periods when the weather permits that the existing unenclosed outdoor patio area is used by patrons to enjoy Billy's offerings in an outdoor setting. So what we would like to do, and I suppose the idea came as much from some of the patrons as it did from us, is take that existing patio area, which comprises 320 square feet, and to enclose it in a manner that will provide us an opportunity to utilize this area in conjunction with their purchases throughout the year. And in doing that, one of the nice side effects of this, working with Jack and David, is we've come up with a plan for enclosing that's really kind of exciting. It's going to really upgrade the whole facade generally of the store and have a nice impact, I think, in terms of visually the center as a whole. I would want to emphasize again that the area that we seek to enclose is precisely where the existing unenclosed patio has been for so many years. And again, as we work through this, we became very excited about the design. We think it's very nice. Let me stress, it's not intended to, nor will it increase our patron volume, but simply going to provide us a year-round option for patrons who have been coming to Billy's for many years to do something year-round that they often do in the summertime, and that is just to enjoy the patio and their purchases. The Zoning Board of Appeals on February 1st did unanimously grant variances of section 12.7.6.1 in order to reduce the quote required setback from the street line to 11.2 feet, and a variance of section 28.6.12 with regard to the enclosure of the existing patio area of 320 square feet and its conversion to year-round patron floor area. The board was cognizant of the fact that the lot is a corner lot, and that in itself establishes hardship for the granting of setback variances, and that the patio area to be enclosed has existed for many years and is currently set back 11.2 feet from the center line of Katona Drive. And the board also found that the 320 square feet that's been used seasonally for many decades, being used on a year-round basis, would not create an undue problem with regard to use or parking. So in essence, what we're doing is we're anxious to have the opportunity to really upgrade Billy's Bakery in a visual and aesthetic sense, but also provide an amenity on a year-round basis that people seem to enjoy on a seasonal basis. It's a small area, it's an existing patio, and we think it's going to enhance the center generally and also be a nice amenity for our customers. So myself or Mr. Wojtowicz or Mr. Kleban be pleased to answer any questions you might have, but that's the essence of the application.
Very good. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Fallon, the applicant? I think it's pretty straightforward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Any members of the public wish to be heard on this item? It's that straightforward. Very good. I'll close the public hearing on this item. So next, we have final two items on our agenda. I'll call them together. Zoning regulation amendment, application of Post Road Residential LLC to amend section 10.18.3 of the zoning regulations, and 333 Uncle Road, special permit and request for a determination as a transit-oriented downtown district, application of Post Road Partners LLC for a 90-unit residential development in the designed residential district.
Chairman, Members of the commission, my name is Raymond Rizzio. I'm very happy to be before you tonight, representing 333 Uncle Road LLC. It's a pleasure to be back before you. We've taken into account a lot of your comments, and I just want to take you through a couple of things that we're talking about. First, as you know, on your agenda, there is a text amendment. Let me get the board set up. This commission, we had a very lengthy, let me just show the project with the detached and then the attached. We had a very lengthy application as we proposed what's called the transit. Some of the commissioners were not members of the commission at the time. We had a very lengthy application where we proposed what's called a TODD, a TOD, Transit-Oriented Downtown District. This was meant for meant to basically promote properties around the railroad station to allow for an increased density, similar to what you heard earlier tonight in the trademark project. Similar density, 50 bedrooms per acre. It's a transit-oriented, but what the nice part about this project was it was going to be toward downtown. The commission adopted a regulation that's before you and on the books now that basically said as long as you're more than 3 acres within 800 feet of the entryway to the railroad station, that you would be entitled to, and in a DRD, Design Residence District, you would be entitled to 50 bedrooms to the acre. That was the general application that came before the commission. Chairman, if you don't mind, I'm just going to bring a little history to the members of the commission that weren't here at the time.
I think that is very helpful for the commissioners who weren't here.
So there was much discussion. The commission put a tremendous amount of effort into what I think we ended up actually with a better regulation. And the regulation, the commission was concerned that the project that was proposed had a lot of bulk. It was a very large building. The lot that was proposed on is a very long lot with like 130 feet of frontage, 150 feet of frontage, and 800 feet of depth. So the building to be constructed had to be built long. So the commission, in keeping with trying to break up a little bit of bulk, changed the regulation to basically make a condition that no building could be larger than 60% or smaller than 40%, which basically says, look, we understand the density, we don't mind the density, but we'd like to have it in separate buildings and break up the bulk. There's Mosswood condominiums to the south, there's Audubon Village to the north. Those buildings are kind of broken up. Commission went through a lot of debate. The regulation passed, and we came out with basically, I think, a project that limited the units from basically down to 90 units per acre, 90 units per project, still the 50 bedrooms per acre. All the things which led us to redesign what we think a better project. But as you know, when you go through, when you're doing these decisions and things are coming about, and you come to compromises on certain things, sometimes the spirit of it and then the reality of it when you implement it sometimes don't go hand in hand. So in this instance, where we had to break up the 40 and the 60% of the buildings, we could come in with a compliant project that basically looks like this, where we would have one building that would be 60%, one building that would be 40%. But by not being able to connect the buildings, because then it would be, if we connect them, it would technically be 100% in one building. We end up in a situation where now, do we have to build multiple amenity areas for each building? Do people who have to use the amenity buildings have to go outside to go into one of the amenities? Do people, does the building look kind of, how do you address kind of a gap in the building? And we came up with a plan that I think keeps the spirit of what this commission worked so hard at, yet allows us the flexibility to design a project of this size without having to develop multiple amenity groups, multiple entryways, people not having the same, being able to enjoy the amenities in the same way. So what you'll see is, as you can see, it was in your presentation, we basically adopted everything that was, a project that adopted everything that was passed that night, except we added something that said, with regard to the 60%
and 40%, except that said building may be connected by a corridor or amenity area on the ground floor for the purposes of traveling between buildings or providing amenities serving both buildings. So what happens is, now, the purpose of that is why we wanted to keep this with the spirit of what you folks passed, meaning in the connection between the two buildings, there can only be a corridor or an amenity area. So there'll be no units above that area. So we'll break it down so that you'll have basically a single story, and then an amenity area that can be a reception area, a greeting area, a drop-off area, the gym. People can go back and forth between the buildings. Otherwise, when you come back with the breakup, you have pretty much amenities in this building. These people have to leave, either go, in the winter, they have to go in the garage, around, and go up through stairs to get to an amenity area, or they have to go outside, and it just kind of becomes the building with or without all the stuff. Let's put it that way. So we felt that we accomplished both things with the amendment by basically saying, we'll keep the 40/60 in the two sides, but let us attach the building so that we can, one, break the bulk of the building like the commission, I think, wanted, yet two, give everybody in both buildings equal access. Three, not require the developer to build multiple amenity areas. Four, not require the builder to be able to lose the efficiencies of construction, meaning no hallways that connect, multiple, trying to get ductwork, you'd have to have separate systems, you can't connect everything. This allows this to be one cohesive development, yet gains the separation in bulk, which I think the commission was looking for. Not to get site-specific in an amendment, but one of the things you have to remember, which is also good as with respectful to our neighbors, is the site, if you know the Knights of Columbus site on 333 Uncle Road, is basically to get flattened down to where the parking lot is now. So that all that rock comes out, and there'll be retaining walls on the backside toward Audubon Village and toward Mosswood. So this is will be a one-story building that basically won't even be able to be seen by our neighbors. Keep in mind that we're still keeping the attractive front that looks like a large home. The building runs back, so from the street, you won't know that the building's broken up or not. So the building will look like it's broken up for basically everybody that can see the building. The only people that'll probably be able to see the roof of the building will be the people driving by on 95 to realize that these buildings are connected, because they'll be the only people that are high enough that can look down on the project. So for all those reasons, we would request that the commission take this into consideration. Let us connect the buildings, but we're doing it only for amenities or a connecting corridor. We're not going to this doesn't have the ability to get turned into one large bulk building. I'll have a handout that will show you that we still comply. I don't want to dovetail one into the other. I'm trying to say the text amendment, use it by example. As I get through my presentation on the application, I'll explain to you how we submitted our application in complete compliance with the the TOD that was adopted, and we've also submitted an alternate plan with the building attached so that you could, in effect, if you pass the amendment, you can pass it with a plan that's before you showing that the buildings are attached as a condition of approval. So we're trying to not have to come back and again, although it's nice to see, I'm glad everybody, rather see people arguing about signs than 90 units. So it's actually very unusual for this town. And it was a pleasure to get through the first part of my presentation, not get interrupted for the first time. But thank you very much. Bad joke. But, that is my presentation with regard to the amendment. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I think as we lead into going through the project and what was designed, I thank the commission for all the work they put in adopting the TOD, because I think we ended up with a better project. I think we ended up with a project that really meets the needs of the people of Fairfield, and I think it's going to be really one of the most successful things in town. But this amendment, we think, is very important to the project. Yes, sir.
The rendering below,
Yes.
is that with respect to the amendment showing a corridor between the two buildings?
So what happens, Sheila, do we have the plan showing the project separated? So this is what it looks like separated.
Separated, that's easy.
And what there'll be is a break in the area, and, let me see if we have that. It'll be like this. Okay?
That's separated, yes.
That's separated.
Got that.
If this amendment were to be approved, the commission could pass an application with the condition that would look like that from the outside. And visually, there's really not much of a difference. But it's the construction, it's the use, it's the people that have to live in it every day. And that was what it would be like on the inside. So we have
Okay.
two separate buildings, separated by an amenity area and a corridor.
So the rendering, the second page,
This
that rendering
is what
and
will
the,
be built.
and the one below it are the same?
Correct.
Okay, that top one is showing the amenity in between the two,
Right.
not a
So
corridor.
let me do,
Let me just get to my,
this is without the this is current, consistent with the application.
no, I understand. I guess the point I have is, it seems to me that your client prefers the amenity being the connection between the two buildings.
We prefer to have a connected building to provide a central corridor to allow for a cohesiveness with regard to construction and use.
I understand that, but your client, with the renderings that I'm seeing, you've given us two options, a
Correct.
corridor and an amenity, but your client is more focused on the amenity being the connecting points between the two
Correct.
buildings.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And if the commission, because when I first looked at that, I understand your point, and I find it to be reasonable, but it seems to me that when you have an amenity connecting the two buildings, you are essentially going against the spirit by showing a full building and not a corridor.
Well, that's one of the reasons I asked, we were very specific in the language, because we didn't want to, once they got attached by a corridor, are they still one building? We wanted to say that whatever connection was between two buildings was either amenity area or corridor.
Yeah.
And also, if you want to add that no residential
Well, I
component
get that,
will
but
be
I would
built
expect the
over.
corridor then just to be a hallway.
Right. I mean, if
Much smaller than that.
I guess without a text amendment, you know, what we could do is just put a canopy or some unheated, something that would not connect the buildings to call them one. I think what ends up happening is we end up with form over substance. Substance to me is we need to get this project treated as one nice project. This is not phase one and phase two. It's all going to be built one time. It's going to be occupied at one time. We don't want people in effect in separate, having a difference of amenities or a
Okay.
difference of things.
But your client wouldn't be able to oppose to just, and however it was, if it was a year-round hallway that was heated, or, I mean, I can understand you even saying not even an outside breezeway would be somewhat inappropriate because people go into the gym in the winter.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Because I'm assuming there's a gym.
And then if you look
yeah.
at it in the context of the property, so say we move and you want to say, how would this amendment affect a particular project? Keeping the buildings apart, bless you, doesn't really benefit anybody, but it does make a hardship on developing the property. I think you'll see.
I need to interrupt you there.
Yeah.
Keeping the building separate does
the main thing,
benefit.
yeah.
It benefits the community. That was the principal reason behind my support for the TOD that was passed, was to create two separate buildings that broke up the massing and provided a disconnection between the two. You've provided a jigsaw, which essentially dovetails the two buildings, leaving an uncovered hallway between the two, and now you're asking us to revise the regulations to provide for that to be covered,
No, just
enclosed,
connect, yeah.
heated, and connected, which is one building. It's one building.
Well, we could, I would, I wouldn't agree with you on that if we had the ability to connect it. And you certainly could do it with regard to fire stops. There's multiple buildings that all through town that have touching walls. They have fire stops. I mean, Seelan, why don't you come up also and explain, this is our architect.
How about Tony?
My name is Seelan Patha. I'm a principal of Banfield Architecture. I think what you might be alluding to is firewalls that
Yes.
build, like in a townhouse, buildings separate buildings but have common walls. I don't know if that's
I understand, and frankly, the TOD that was passed admittedly did not contain a detail on how much separation there needed to be between the two buildings. And it doesn't. And you've arguably, not arguably, you've designed this separation with minimal separation between the buildings, an area which is the equivalent to a hallway, which you now propose to cover, enclose, heat, and make connected the two buildings.
Can I just speak to the architectural intent, and we can discuss whether that meets the intent of and the spirit of the regulation. We were given the problem to solve of separating the two masses, separating the building into smaller masses. The comment, the refrain in the first series of meetings was that it was too long and too large. And we took about approximately 77 foot out of the buildings in that area. And then we said, what do we make that now? Because it's two separate buildings. This is a community. It's one community. These people share common spaces like leasing. A guy goes down to get a mail room. Mail is delivered to one space. The gym is in one space. When you want to speak to a manager, you go to one space. So how do you solve that problem? And we felt that if we do something in the middle that acts as both a place to arrive and is permeable, entirely permeable architecturally, that's why you see all the glass.
Entirely communal.
Permeable, in terms of architecture, in terms of the glass.
Permeable?
Yeah, you see through it. You see through it. It's just, it's a lot of glass. It's if not architecture is breaking into massing models, we have positive spaces and a negative space. That's the way we saw it. So so that the space itself looked like there were two big buildings and a piece of glass, an object in the middle. And architecturally it made a lot of sense for various reasons. It broke up the massing, firstly. It's a one-story building.
Yeah, and by the way, I agree. I think that with that inset one-story space in between the two, it does break up the massing. But the issue is connected by an amenity area. That amenity, there's nothing here that limits that amenity area. Now I'm dealing with the regulation amendment.
Sure, okay, that's a different issue.
There's nothing in here which says that amenity area needs to be one story, needs to be set back, it can be 2, 3, 4 stories. It can be the entire area in between those two buildings.
Can it be more than?
No, it says on the ground floor.
Correct.
But there's nothing here which prohibits that space from being higher than that.
Look,
And I think what you're gonna say is, well, then change it, make it work.
No, I'm not kicking it back to you. I thought I did what I thought got accomplished, what I thought what was set out to be done. If the commission doesn't feel comfortable that what they see, first of all, anything that comes back and any changes that come back has to come through you through the special permit process.
Yeah.
So you have the ability to condition an approval that a connection states that there be no dwellings above the second floor, that the first floor be as per plans, and that we've already said that it's only on the ground floor, and you can say that it may only be one floor. So the commission has, what I tried to do is not get into an argument as to what was in the middle. We wanted to make it work, and we wanted to make it so that and the Feinfeld people did a tremendous job of making this look truly like a very warm reception area, all glass, totally separate from the architecture from here. The nice thing, for the most part, I don't see that this issue, if you're comfortable with the architecture and you're comfortable with the way that's designed and the way you have to condition it, with the way the TOD is written, I don't see anybody coming back and jamming something down your throats again without significant changes to the amendment. So concerns that you may have can be tackled one or two ways. They can be tackled through modifying my language a bit, or two, requiring it as conditions of approval when you vote on an application. So you have the ability to take away any, I don't want to say distrust, but any possibility that you have the ability to understand that what you see is what you're going to get, which I think is important. And we have not tried to hide anything. We've not tried to monkey with numbers. All we've tried to do is, we've got this great project. We've got 92 units. I think almost everybody here, I think, is here supporting this application. We've put a tremendous amount of community groundwork and coming up with a project that works for us, that works for our neighbors, that has gotten the support of everybody. And with your help in reducing our units, but allowing us to keep our bedrooms, I think we end up with a better project than was originally proposed previously. In those discussions, which we were not a part of, we couldn't have a lot of the give and take that we now have once we have a regulation that's passed. So I think all the ideas, and I think we tried to meet the spirit of your idea by separating these buildings, yet allowing a third space to be introduced that's quite distinct from the balance of the space. So that's probably the best way to put it. We have these two residential facilities, and then we have an amenity area that connects them. That will also be barely visible from any other
Attorney
property.
Rizzo?
Yes.
It's jumping a little ahead, but assuming the buildings are separated for the moment, was there an underground parking?
Yes.
Okay, so there is,
An unheated underground.
unheated, I understood, but there is a way of getting from one building to the other without being exposed to the elements.
Yes. But keep in mind, I think what we're all looking for, and we don't want to, once again, stress form over substance, we're looking for the best possible project. Something we're proud of, something this commission's proud of, and something that is a cohesive project that this guy architecturally isn't asking anybody, why the hell didn't you connect the buildings? Because I can tell you, anybody that drives by is going to say, why didn't you connect the buildings?
No, I imagine a resident may say, why do I have to go downstairs?
Why do I have to go downstairs? Why do I have to go outside? Why is the mailroom in that building instead of my building? Why do I have to go out? Why do they get to go to the gym? We don't get to, it's...
Right, because I think that frankly, the intention, and as I sit here now, I think to myself, well, why not just make 3 buildings? You'll have, a
One
residential
amenities.
building, and your amenity building, where you'll have the gym and the mailbox and all the rest of the stuff.
Chairman, I won't...
I'm being candid with you. Like, that's
understand.
what's going through my head as you're talking. And, you're saying, no, we only want one.
Hold on, okay. You want to speak in?
Yeah, excuse me, I'm Andy Montelli, I'm Post Road Residential, I'm the developer of the property. And just to address your issue, sir, we've been doing this a long time and developing these projects for a long time, and I kind of try to think of myself in these cases as the advocate for the people who are going to be living here at some point down the road. There's going to be 90 families here. And because we've done 40 of these projects, we know what works well.
I hope there won't be families in studios.
There might be a couple.
I understand. I'm giving you a hard time.
You did limit us to 2-bedroom units, so we'll have small families. We're just thinking of the ease of living here for people in the future. One of the things that this building has is elevators from the garage up to the 3rd floor. And, in part that's because we think there's going to be perhaps an older clientele that might be living in part of these units, folks downsizing from Southport, Greenfield Hills. And so we're simply trying to make the building easy to use for those folks. We also know that the distance at which this break happens off of Uncowa Road means if you drive past Uncowa Road, because it's a very long, thin site, it's like a bowling alley, okay? If you drive past Uncowa Road, this break in the building is about 450, 500 feet back. You'll never see it. The folks who will see this break in the building are a couple of our neighbors at Audubon Village, Cindy's here, and maybe a couple of our neighbors at Mosswood, and Bob's here. So it's not visible to the average person passing on the street, and it makes the building much more user-friendly for the people living there. And so that's a lot of the reason for us trying to present an argument or a conversation about why connecting this thing and making it one building is beneficial for folks living there down the road.
And I appreciate that. I really do. Now, we have to also take into consideration the foundation upon which you build this building in this location and what could be built in other locations and other parcels that would be visible from the road and so forth, right? And so from the perspective of the residents off-site, how does that impact the neighborhood, the town, and so forth? So I appreciate the site-specific, perspective very much, but, yeah.
That's our argument. I mean, we can beat this as dead horse.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty straightforward, and I don't see a negative to it. I really don't. I do understand maybe the commission might be a little frustrated because I think you did put a hell of a lot of work into getting this Todd approved. But as we know, when we do our regulations, we don't hit it 100% of the issues 100% of the time. And sometimes until you take words to paper, do these tweaks come back and text amendments come before you. I don't think that if you're comfortable with what we're proposing here, that you really have to worry about that popping up elsewhere. I think that was discussed when we adopted the Todd, and we kind of identified what, unless the train station or the school across the street gets sold, or Mosswood gets totally demolished, that you don't really have an application. But you also do have your special, the beauty of these applications is we can't take this regulation, change it, and walk over to Mrs. Wang and say, stamp this, because we're going to go build it. We got to come back to you. And you still have control over design, and you still have the ability to say, that's fine, we'll appreciate that, but there's a condition that there be no residences above the connection, which I think is in there already, or that it be no more than one story, or that it's as per plans and nothing else. So that if there's any kind of changes to this architecture that you may be comfortable with, it comes back to you. But in the end, the only people that are going to ever see this, I think, are mostly our supporters, as you'll find out, and I think the only people that it's going to really truly affect and create a hardship to are the people that are going to live in the building. And I don't really see the benefit, but that's.
Yeah. I'm just concerned about the size of this thing, because rough calculation looks like it's about the size of this room, perhaps a little smaller. And since you show a fairly substantial clear story, I'm assuming that's a vaulted space. It's like a 24-foot ceiling in there. If it's not one big room, what?
Can you describe the amenity space?
Yeah, I mean, if there's an amenity in there, is there a second floor? Is that the gym and the hallway goes through the middle of it, or what do you have any plans?
It has to be on the ground floor.
So I'll start here. So this roof line here is, to the midpoint of this roof is about 17 feet, 17 feet. And to this uppermost portion of this shed dormer is 28 feet. Now we can play with that. We can drop that. If there is a height limitation that we're looking for, this is purely to bring light into the space and to add to the architecture. We wanted to create a nice building at the entrance to our entire development.
It doesn't give us any more usable square footage. We're not getting into it.
No, that's not really, I don't think what he was
I'm looking
addressing.
at this big sort of space like this and thinking.
Like this.
So you mean this space, this entire space?
No, just that middle piece even. So, like if a corridor runs
So
through
the
there,
middle portion is 7,000 square foot, mostly glass on the
that whole
outside.
horseshoe or just the middle?
Just this middle here.
Just that is almost 8,000?
Well, sorry, no, this whole thing is
That whole
7,000
thing,
square feet,
okay.
yeah. These two portions will read as part of the buildings, as part of the building massing
Right.
that you see on,
Yeah, like in the bottom elevation there, on
Yeah.
your holding.
so these two are part of the building massing, right?
Sure.
So that architecturally it reads the way the building should read. The central portion here, it's where all the glass is, it's gonna have a number of spaces in it. We'll have leasing offices, we'll have the gym broken up as you walk in. It won't be will never ever read as a dense mass. Yeah, a lobby down the middle, gym at the back, maybe a lounge area, leasing offices, a reception area for the leasing offices.
Okay.
So it's broken up
All right.
in that
That
central
helps,
space.
thank you. That helps.
And what's the ceiling height in that
So
space?
these are early days on these sections here.
Sure.
Not good. So right there.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, the midpoint
I
is
didn't see it.
16, so I would say around here it's about 12 feet.
12, and in the middle?
Eve. In the middle, we've got 27 to that uppermost portion.
And is that open and exposed in the center of the,
Right now it is.
yeah?
I've
that
figured
might
out
be the
didetails.
corridor.
I haven't figured out how to frame this.
No, that's
but once
not
I
a
figure out how
corridor,
to frame
that's just
this,
open
yeah.
space.
The idea is for it to be open.
No, so if I'm understanding it correctly, you're just talking about putting, covering, if you're looking at the drawing from the front, you've got the central amenity space, and it is connected on the left side presently to that building. On the right side, it's not. That on the current drawing, under the regulations as
not.
currently proposed, that blue rectangle on the right side, right there,
Yeah.
is not.
The pochade area, yeah.
That's-
You can't see it from here, it's pochade.
Okay?
Yep.
That's not, that doesn't exist, okay? And what the the regulation amendment is proposing is language to enable a connection between the two buildings, which would mean that they would simply cover that right side the same way that it's connected on the left side, and it would all be one building,
Right.
okay? With a flow-through on each side leading to the central reception, gym, leasing offices, and other
Lounges and so on.
spaces.
I'd
Right?
like to make one more architectural point, please. Is that this volume that you're looking at, which is, again, the idea here is to create a great architectural space. That's why it has the shape it is. It has the shape it has. We could make it a flat roof. Architecturally, that's not appealing to us. Right? On the two sides of that building, they are flat roofs. So the connections themselves are very low. So this building looks like an independent building. It has meaning as an entrance to the development. And it's got these intentionally low structures on either side to accentuate the
Yeah.
center portion.
And see, one of the issues when we came to every building, say, with two connections, is we have a restriction of one building no less than 40% and one building
So this
no
is
bigger than
just
60%.
going.
So there's no way to do three
Well,
buildings.
that brings up an interesting point, because when I was looking at
Wow.
that bottom part,
Yeah.
the bottom one,
Mhm.
I was envisioning that amenity area be the connection. But in fact, it's that very small corridor. that you're-
Correct. That's
So,
my point.
yeah, I
This
just
is-
got it. So it's kind of like one of those, one prong assumes the other prong, because you could have a 1-foot corridor.
Correct.
So my idea of just limiting it to a corridor really doesn't work.
And that was, what really drove the point home for me was when you raised the prospect of there being separate buildings that were separated by a firewall, a common wall, like in a row house or a townhouse, where you would otherwise comply with the letter of the regulation, but in fact, in practice, it's one building that is technically separated by a common wall with a firewall in it.
This whole-
That's not what we intended.
Well, the hard part about this regulation is we're all striving, honestly, to put the best project forward. And we're not gaining any square footage, we're not gaining any more rentable space. We're just trying to say, if you folks are going to give us the opportunity to put this type of project in town, Andy, who's done projects that have received every architectural award possible, same with Sealand. We just wanted to make it the best. Because that's what we want in our downtown. And we don't think that we don't think it's going to get an eyesore because there's this little connection, but we don't think that there's any benefit from keeping the buildings so-called apart. However, we were very respectful of that 40/60, and I can show you, we went
No,
through...
I looked at it.
We were, we did the math, we made sure that our residential complied with separating these buildings. The funny thing is, whether it's if we put atriums or put something else there in the middle and made it out, it's basically, we're taking, we have this center is an indoor-outdoor amenity area.
Yeah.
That's going
Well,
to be used
I
on
think
the
I saw
outside.
like a grill,
Yeah,
patio on the
it's-
backside there with a grill and stuff.
There's no intention here to crowd these and make this one residential superstructure. We have definitively separated these things the best we can and basically make our community area the center of our development. And then the question was, do we force a break in it when it doesn't really benefit, we don't think, much. And let me tell you, I come before you very respectful of all the work this commission did. And I know how hard it took me to try and wordsmith this last sentence to not leave it in a situation where it could be abused. You have two protections so that you know what we say is what happens. You have the ability to pass an amendment that allows us to connect the buildings, and then you have control over our development as we go through the special permit process, which is the next part of our application. I really would hope the commission, we really believe strongly in this project. We have done all we can in talking to the neighbors and getting the support that we needed to.
Well, I
bring the
noticed
best
that,
projects
we have
forward.
representatives of the neighbors here, so, I'm looking forward to hearing what
Okay.
they have to say.
If
And
you're
I'm
fairly
sure we all
confident, they
looking
are
forward to hearing
pretty
what they-
supportive.
Yep, okay, very good.
Oh.
Does anyone else have any questions on Commissioner Levy?
Just one last comment. What some may see as words of expansion can also serve as words of limitation. And if I'm reading this amendment correctly, what you're saying is that the purpose is, or that said buildings may be connected by a corridor or amenity. So the key word there is that they're being connected as opposed to being one building, correct?
Correct.
And it's limited to a corridor or amenity, so it could not be residential. for
Correct.
instance. And it's for the purpose of traveling between the buildings or providing amenities.
Correct.
And nothing more.
Correct.
Thank you.
There was about three, I can't tell you how many revisions of trying to rewrite that sentence got me to where we were so that I could get before you and confidently try and make you comfortable that there was not going to be an abuse of this language. That's really the best we got. We're trying to do the best we can.
I didn't see there was one of the one that the architect was showing the interior section.
Yeah, it's in,
Did you see it? Oh, there it is. Which one?
Can I also just show you one thing, and this is kind of it's going to be entered into kind of both applications.
Thank you.
This shows you really how this is all broken out, with the buildings separated and the buildings attached. And when you look at the discrepancies, and you look at the percentages, and you look at the way what the amendment reads, I think you'll see, see the percentages are honored and kept with regard to the residential in all respects. So the buildings were separated, and we kept the separation and kept all the amenities in one area. We end up at 57.8% in one building, 42.2% in one building. If we connect the buildings but exclude the areas of connection, which is this amenity area in the corridor, we end up with a building A, which is our front building, at 59.2%, and our building B area at 40.8%. So we end up in a situation, and if the commission feels comfortable that we have to make those the brakes, some type of firewall or fire-rated wall, we're happy to do that. I don't think it really means anything except satisfy some language. But what I wanted to show this commission was, we heard what you said at the last hearing. We appreciate it, and we spent a considerable amount of money and time, because I think we got this approved 6 or 7 months ago, and to come up with the best possible design and get here, yet still respecting all the input that the commission put into passing this regulation. And like I said, we're not gaining anything here monetarily. We're probably designing a more expensive building with no more rentable area, no more leasable area, except we think a better looking, more efficient, more serviceable building to what will be our community and hopefully your community down the road. And for all those reasons, I would respectfully request that you pass the text amendment. And and I will welcome any questions with regard to how the text amendment affects our special permit application, but I will take you through our special permit application now if you'd like. And yes.
One quick question on this, so you just handed out to us, so sorry, that you just handed out to us, for clarification. It says here that buildings attached excludes floor area of connection. That's not that whole amenity horseshoe that you excluded, just as,
That's
just
just
the
2,900 square feet.
Yeah, not
No.
the 8,000 square feet.
Because, not the 8, just the 2,900.
Just that part there, gotcha.
That's it.
Yeah.
The cutoff's 11 o'clock, not 10 o'clock, right? Okay. Otherwise, it's going to be very quick. I'll try and compromise and get us done by 10:30. Chairman, members of the commission, once again, I'm Raymond Rizzio, representing 333 Uncle Road LLC with regard to this special permit application and TODD. Let me start off with the paper site plan. Got a site plan on the board. Joey, you have yours?
Yeah, right here. Wait, that's okay?
So, this property is former Knights of Columbus, and when I say former, I mean former, because the Knights of Columbus building is down. We had a lot of discussions with our neighbors. It was impossible to police that building. Building was not torn down because we took for granted that we'd have an approval, but there were health and safety concerns. In discussions with our neighbors concerned of the building creating a fire, vagrants staying there, constant calls to police, we decided to take the building down for safety insurance purposes and basically as it's showing a good faith in cooperation with our neighbors. So there is no former Knights of Columbus building, so we'll refer to it as the former Knights of Columbus site. The property basically sits here on Uncle Road. The Mosswood is to its north, Audubon Village is to its north, Mosswood's to its south, and directly the front door being 782 feet away to the train station from this site. The building is 3.219 acres. The building's in a DRD zone. The building is a fully residential building consistent with the TOD regulation that you passed. I will tell you, in your package, there is also and what was been presented and the maps have been left, there is, if in the event the commission decided to adopt the amendment that was proposed, there is the plan in your package. There is a plan showing a connection, which we would happy to be accept as a condition of approval. With regard to this this regulation permits 50 bedrooms per acre. In this instance, we would end up at 160 bedrooms. We propose 158 bedrooms. The regulation requires that there be no more than 90 units be constructed on the site. The proposal in front of you is for 90 units. Proposal regulation also requires that there be 10% affordable. There are going to be 9 affordable units distributed randomly, yet with the appropriate amenities and adopt the same benefits as any of the other units throughout the project. So there'll be 9 affordable units. Parking requires 1.5 parking spaces per unit. We believe that it would be better to have, we actually propose, which is 135, we propose 170. Of the 170, 142 will be in a covered garage. So believe it or not, we meet your regulation just with our covered parking, with an unheated garage that will run the entire length of the building. We also have 28 outdoor parking spaces, which will be mostly used for visitors. We are, as I said, there's a requirement that be 800 feet from the entry door to the train station platform. On the north side of the train station, we are 782 feet. Our height is at 40 feet as pursuant to the regulations. And setbacks, we have a front setback of 15 feet, we're at 26 feet. We have a side setback of 15 feet, one side is 15 feet. The other, I think, is closer to 35 or 40 feet. The rear setback is supposed to be 15 feet. Our rear setback is 206 feet. That's important because that is really the only place where we have a single-family residential neighborhood. There's a beautiful neighborhood called Ludlow Court. We've spent a considerable amount of time with the neighbors of Ludlow Court, designing our project, addressing their concerns, and keeping any kind of infringement or encroachment onto the single-family neighborhood from this project. We have met with the fire marshal, we have met with every department, and I don't think you'll see there are not any concerns. I think Laura Pulley's fully signed off on the engineering concerns. We've been through wetlands, we received all of our approvals. As to the unit mix, there will be one studio that's 580 square feet. There will be one bedroom units that range anywhere from 750 to 1,050 square feet. There'll be 21 one bedrooms. We'll have two bedrooms that'll be 58 two bedrooms that'll be anywhere from 1,050 square feet to 2,000 square feet. And we'll have two bedrooms with lofts that'll be anywhere from 880 square feet to 2,000 square feet, and the lofts ranging from 300 to 500 square feet. We want to thank you. You forced us to go back to the map, you forced us to go back to our drawing board, and you forced us to say, what can we make better about this project? As originally we had proposed 118 units with, I'm trying to think, I think it was like 81 one bedrooms and the rest two bedrooms. We came back and I think we came up with a project that really meets a lot of the needs of the people of Fairfield. We believe this is going to be not as much a millennial crowd, but we believe it's going to be people downsizing. It's going to be the elderly. It's going to be widows. It's going to be parents who divorced dads who want to stay in town, or mothers that want to be close to their families, grandparents that come in who have connections to Fairfield. This is going to be a very, I believe, Fairfield-oriented project. It's not going to compete with if a young kid's living in Norwalk and wants to be able to go to the bars in Norwalk and be in his one little bedroom studio, they're not going to come to Fairfield. We think there's and I'm sure you've heard about it from your economic development people, there's been a shortage of apartments at Fairfield. Prior to the Trademark building and now this building, most of your apartment projects in Fairfield were broken condominium projects. I don't think very few projects were ever built for the rental community. The whole world, our real estate world, is kind of flipped upside down, and Fairfield is a great town. Fairfield's downtown is vibrant. We have a petition signed by probably 50 downtown merchants who are welcoming this project, because one thing we do need is we need foot traffic to downtown. We don't need any more vehicular traffic, but foot traffic. And we believe this project will be very attractive to anybody who's commuting to New York, anybody who enjoys the downtown, anybody who wants to sell their large house, be a snowbird, come up here in the winter, keep in the summer and keep their connections to Fairfield. And we believe at 90 units, there is more than that share of the market that's out there. We believe with having one of the best downtowns in Fairfield County, maybe the state of Connecticut. Andy, when we got together and talked about developing this project, that this site was maybe one of the best sites along the train line between New Haven and Greenwich, and that this really, given the fact that Fairfield's downtown is a walking downtown, made this even more attractive. It's not like Milford, it's not like Orange, it's not like even Westport, where the Post Road people fly through. It's funny, Westport's downtown, I don't consider the Post Road. Their downtown is Main Street. We're lucky with all the traffic lights and all the stops on 95 that we have. We actually have the Post Road as a portion of our downtown, and we believe this gets to Uncle Road. Like I said, it's a 2-minute walk to the train station. In fact, if you've been around Fairfield a long time, you'll know that this was basically a commuter parking lot, and and occasionally a Knights of Columbus Lodge, but mostly a commuter parking lot for the last 30 years. Now what you're going to have is a beautiful building, bringing new residents to town, with the covered parking. The beauty in designing this and Beinfeld design is our parking, you're not going to look at a field of asphalt. You're only going to see basically 28 parking spaces visible in the middle of this downtown. Everything else is going to be underground, and it's not going to be, so what happens, and when you look at the elevations of the building, if you come up Uncle Road, you'll notice where the old parking lot was. And the building is all built up, so that whole lot is going to be leveled out. So where these buildings are, this portion here basically sits at ground level, right in here. This is kind of where the parking lot was. Everything else will have a full basement and parking garage underground, and the site will be brought down. So as you know, if you the old Knights of Columbus sat up on a knob, this is not going to be 3 floors on top of that knob. That knob's going away, and the ground floor of this project will be the same as the ground floor is on Uncle Road, which will bring the height of the project down. We had a lot of discussion with our neighbors, making sure that everybody understood that almost the first floor kind of is almost below grade as relates to Audubon Village. Basically, you're going to have retaining walls on the back, retaining walls on the side, and a very large, not large, but certainly a well-buffered area between the two projects. And then a huge buffer area, which is where all back here as relates to our neighboring properties out the back. So we've done the best job we can of keeping our multifamily in between our multifamily and having our heaviest buffer system as relates to the single-family neighborhood I'm working for. As you can see, we also have a good distance between our neighbors. In other words, basically, we're going to vegetate and buffer the Audubon Village properties. And basically, with Mosswood, we have not only our driveway, but we have their driveway between their buildings. So we don't get the feeling that we're towering over anybody. And I think that was very important. And that's part of the reason it took so long for us to get here, because we built a consensus in our neighborhood, and I think you'll hear that from our neighbors tonight. I know, Mr. Noonan, you always have some concerns with regard to traffic. We submitted a very detailed traffic report on the original application from Michael Galante, which basically said that there'll be no major impact on traffic, that there'll be a slight increase of traffic going onto Uncle Road and the Post Road, but that it was not going to be something that would end up with a detrimental effect. He also then submitted a letter that by reducing the units from 118 to 90, taking account for all the credits that you get from basically bringing a lot of your commuters to the train instead of during the peak hours versus in their vehicles, that the new project will have less of an impact on any traffic. I can bring Mr. Galante up to make a formal presentation. Many of the commissioners heard the presentation last time. There was a supplemental letter and the report that's in your package that says going from 118 to 90 will actually decrease the amount of, even I can act as a traffic expert and tell you that 118 units going down to 90 will reduce the amount of traffic coming to and from the site. It's one of the, I can act that so if you'd like to hear a more detailed presentation from Mr. Galante, we're happy to do that. Eric Raines is here tonight. Eric, why don't you come up and just take the commission through our landscape plan? Or you know what, Celia, why don't you come up first and go through the architecture, then we'll do Eric with the landscape plan. Joe Pereira, engineer, is here already. He's answered all Laura Pulley's questions, and Laura Pulley, I think, has a letter in the file that basically says that all of the engineering questions have been addressed. Celia, if you could take everybody through the architecture. Yeah, sure. I'll be Carol Merrill. Which boards would you like to see? You want to see floor plans?
That's the question right now. Put that on the record. That's not here.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Seelan Patha. I'm a principal at Fairfield Architecture. So Ray's covered most of everything I was going to go through. I'll go through my notes and pick up the items that he didn't cover. So please stop me, ask questions as we go. I'll just try and walk you through it quickly and reorientate you. So there's 3 full stories. 1, 2, 3, with lofts in the roof. There's a basement. I think Ray just mixed up the numbers a little bit. Basement with 128 spaces and 42 spaces on grade. There's 90 units, 22 one-bedrooms, 67 two-bedrooms, and 1 studio. and that's general dynamics. It's 39 foot 10 inches to the midpoint of the highest roof, 17 foot to the midpoint of that roof as we discussed in the amenity. Architecturally, nothing much has changed from the last time. One of the central ideas was to try and make the building fronting onto Uncoa Road a residential type building. It has a residential scale, residential feel and look. It's clapboard siding. It's got a standing seam metal roof. It's got a porch. It looks like a porch. It'll function as a porch. And 2 stories above that with a window in the gable end. It's about 70 foot wide from this wall to this wall. That's what you're going to see when you drive by. It's going to look like a house, like a home. A large home, but a home. That's the scale you'd experience. And there'll be a driveway alongside it that brings you into the property, and then the building reveals itself as you go down. So we saw breaking up the buildings as an opportunity and a problem to solve. That's a problem that you presented us with, and we solved it by, again, I'll rehash this, right? But by creating a building that's mostly glass, it's different from the other architecture, it's entirely different scale, and it has a drop-off in front of it. Eric will go through that. I think anyone driving through there will immediately identify that as the entrance to the building. That's the purpose. So you go into that building, you're received by the leasing, or if you're a resident, you permeate through the building either left or right into either of the 2 masses. There's a garage below. If you needed to go to the garage, if you're a resident, for example, you loop around the back into a lower garage. And that's another nice thing about this property is that the garage is almost entirely hidden. You don't see it. You can't see it in this rendering. Architecturally, the main concept was to keep the residential scale, especially at the front of the building. We wanted to use traditional forms, so traditional New England vernacular. We like to say we abstract that a little bit. And what I mean by that is we use it's clapboard siding, it's architectural asphalt shingle roof. I'll be clear about that, but it's meant to mimic a wood roof. There's traditional wood trim, divided light windows. The abstraction part comes in where we maybe change the scale of the windows that you'd see in a normal New England home. They're a little larger here. They work better for apartment units. And we pare down the detail on the trim. That's our style of approaching buildings. It's been successful for us in the past, and that's what we've done here.
And what color will the shingle be?
We haven't addressed color yet, but we will.
Is it all one or multi?
We tend to do one color on our buildings, monochromatic buildings, but I'm sure Andy's done a few of these. He knows what tenants like. I'm sure he'll have an opinion.
Question? Sorry, finish if you have.
Sorry, yes, I have. Is that?
Yeah.
I just want a question about this, the middle part, the amenity. If we, without the connection, how are you proposing that it's going to look like this, where it's flush against the building to the left?
Yes.
Okay, because I've seen some where there's like a corridor, even though there's not. Where is it?
So let's go back to the plan. Can we look at this?
Yeah, see there, on here, the amenity is flush.
It's
flush
on this
Part
side,
of the
right?
building.
Part of the
No,
building, yeah, but there's like a little corridor to the left there that connects
You
it.
sort of pinched it there where the connection is.
Yeah.
Whereas
Right there.
the first plan you showed us, it's just a rectangle popping off the side of the building. It doesn't show that little detail. Maybe that's a covered area or something?
Like this one right here.
It's the same
No,
same
the other-
diagram.
no.
Yeah, look what I'm having here.
Oh, sorry, you're looking at the landscape plan.
Well, I mean,
Yes.
I've seen it a few ways.
It's squared off.
Yeah, you see how that's more of a rectangle?
I
Doesn't have
see what
that
you're saying.
Doesn't have that little pinch in
What
there.
is, yeah, so there's no-
Sorry, this is the landscape plan which is showing the massing. This is correct. This is the way to go.
That's the way to do it, okay.
This is more focused on the landscape around the building.
Why was that decision made, though, when, I understand you've got a regulation amendment, but from an architectural standpoint, why was the decision made that even if we didn't do the regulation amendment, to have this separate building off of the left building, the smaller building off the left?
This pinch point you
That
said?
and the middle building there. If the regulation had said, you have 2 separate buildings, and then you have, hold on, then you have, then,
Attorney Rizzio, let Commissioner Noonan
just,
finish.
the regulation had said have 2 buildings.
Correct.
Which you've technically done. But this middle building, this small amenity thing is like,
Well, you mean architecturally,
it
I'll answer
almost,
that.
it almost feels like you're leading us down this regulation amendment with this
So,
architect.
I'll answer that. And a point we didn't make before was that technically we could have brought these two buildings right up against each other. Three-story buildings right up against each other.
Yeah.
10 foot apart and met the regulation.
Well, you could have absorbed it into this bigger.
Correct, yes, we could
It
have.
had the same thing.
We
You
could
didn't
have, we could
this
have made these two
kind
big
of
masses.
skinny
Right.
Appendix-looking thing.
We could have made these two big masses closer, but that doesn't serve the development.
How?
Because we wanted, if you have a large mass separated from another large mass, they shouldn't be that close. We intentionally separated them by about 77 feet. And then the question became, like I said before, what do you now put in that 77 feet? It made architectural sense to put the amenity, the common core, that becomes the heart of your development, and give it a different architectural styling.
So either we have a choice of pushing the buildings together so people aren't so far from amenities, or bring the amenities closer between the buildings. So that was the quandary. I thought, maybe erroneously, you're looking for a decent-sized gap in between, and that's what we gave you. And now we're addressing some of the amenity areas, some indoor, some outdoor, in between the two residential structures. So one of the other things that's important about if we're allowed to connect the buildings and the commission passes this amendment is that you will be able to basically walk from any end of the building to this front porch without having to go outside.
Okay. Maybe I missed it, and if you can please repeat it, then I just want to say it one more time in case I didn't express it correctly. When I'm looking at this project, assuming no regulation amendment, we've said two buildings.
Correct.
The middle part, the amenity, just seems to be out of context with the other two.
So
It's almost as if you were...
I'll try and adjust it architecturally. So
Please.
it was a
Yeah,
conscious...
If I missed it, I'm sorry, but I just...
So, I'm not sure that you like my answer, but it's a conscious
No, no,
architectural...
that's fine.
Conscious architectural decision to do that.
Fair enough.
Because...
Even considering we wanted two buildings.
Correct, and,
Okay.
and the idea is that you have two large masses, and there's a architectural proportion that you have to maintain, not put them too close together. So you have the issue with trying to separate the two buildings. The question is what that central building becomes. And there was an opportunity to create a traditional form with a gable end building, but abstract it with a series of glass below, and make that a really interesting structure, potentially with exposed wood beams and so on, eventually that we were alluding to in the sections, that becomes a reception point. So it identifies as different from these two, and therefore becomes a point that you arrive at. And then we went as far as dropping those two pinch points you spoke about into flat roofs, further enhancing the idea that that's a separate structure. So it was a conscious architectural decision to do it. We think it enhances the project. You have a drop-off that Eric will show right in front here that says, you've arrived. This is the entrance. This is your front door. It's not just a door in this gable end that looks like the other three gable ends. So,
Okay.
architecturally, that's where we're going.
You may play the details up on that even further, do you think? Or
On
are you
this?
pretty much set? 'Cause
Yeah,
if you're-
we have to, because that's our entrance.
Well, yeah, that's what I was gonna say, that's not an entrance. You
Well,
know,
we-
it needs,
we'll-
especially if you have that beautiful porch on the end, if you're gonna do it, run with it.
Absolutely, we're gonna, yeah,
You know.
we'll have to do it, right?
Yeah.
For the development to survive, we'll have to do it really nicely.
Yeah, I get your logic, that makes sense.
Yep.
Question?
Commissioner
Did
Francis.
I see parking on the Unquist Road? Uncle
Parking?
Road, and right in front of the building, did I see about 15 parking spaces?
Okay, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Good evening, Eric Raines, the landscape architect for the project. Are you speaking
Uncle
along?
Road end,
On Onkawa?
yeah,
No, there's no proposed.
right against the front of the building.
No,
Yeah, I did not.
no, the first spaces are interior to the site, past the front of the building.
Okay, maybe I was looking at that.
Yeah, the way we have it
All
set
right.
up, that basically everyone will, except, if the buildings were connected, everybody would be able to traverse this building. There's a door that leads out onto this patio. In other words, if you didn't want to go through the garage, or you didn't want to have to come out, one of the things that Sealand didn't hype on, and which I think you'll find attractive, and we really, So you'll be able to walk the entire length of the building, come out onto the porch, and walk out like the front steps onto Uncle Road, which I don't know of any other apartment building that's designed like this. The one thing we didn't talk about is all the first floor buildings will have access, all the first floor units will have access out directly outside. So they'll have direct access to a courtyard or access to let me see if we have this. So there's, each of these first floor units, you can't really see it here, but you'll see they all have front doors and they'll all have little patios. So if you're walking in town, you have the ability to access your property either basically by pulling up, if you wanted to, and literally walking onto a sidewalk and into your front door. I mean, it's almost like a townhouse style walk-up living that you don't have anywhere else. We tried to not give you guys a commercial structure that's got a lot of windows and people living in it. We tried to make this, we originally had Jack Franzen working with us, and he's the one that thought of basically bringing this front portion out and making an attractive Greenfield Hill-like entrance, and then getting 90 units in a building that just didn't look like a massive structure. It looks like it's got some detail, it looks like it's got some character, and it says Fairfield when you go by it. It doesn't say Stamford, it doesn't say Norwalk, it doesn't look like it's kind of what we've been looking for our downtown. I heard about the people talking about the signs on previous applications and what they're looking for. Those are the kind of details and things we considered when we gave Sealand the architecture. At Sealand, they've designed some of the Norwalk buildings that have nothing like this colonial character. That's what we thought Fairfield was looking for, and that's what we've came up with, and we're trying to give you the best product. We've spent a considerable time, and we'll be spending a considerable amount of money on landscaping. And Eric will explain to you what we've done to address our neighbors, and all the, what do you call it, all the landscape amenities that we will have here.
Sure. Just to follow up on maybe it's a way to approach the presentation to talk about pedestrian access to and from the building, and then talk about vehicular access. As Ray was saying, if you're approaching the site and you live in the farthest portion of the building, and you're facing the main circulation, you can walk directly to your unit if you follow this sort of cream-colored line to your front door, or your door, which would be right here. And the same thing occurs at that location, and then regularly up both of the buildings that have units in them. If you live on the other side of the building, you can enter the building at the end here, to and from the building here, and then walk through the building to get to your units. So pedestrian-wise, the building's very accessible. It's very connected to the site in multiple ways. The primary access, which would be for probably for visitors of residents who would need to access the building, would be in the central portion, which is the sort of heart of all of this, as it's evolved, and it serves as the front door to the project, and it's where they're greeted by reception. It's where all the control elements are of the building, and it's where all the amenities are. The scale of it is very important to the way that the space, both in front of that amenity area and behind the amenity area, that lower scale of it is going to contribute to the ability to have that space be very comfortable. And what we've represented in this drawing is a large sort of terrace area in front, which would be furnished with comfortable furniture that anyone coming to and living in the building could use as an outdoor amenity. On the other side of that is against a retaining wall, as was said earlier, that's above the proposed terrace. So if you're on that terrace, you can't look directly out and see the Audubon Village buildings, for example, because you're in effect lower than the grade that separates the two properties. So we want to use that, and again, the scale of the proposed building being shorter, as Sealand was saying earlier, helps that space feel not so not claustrophobic, because if you have the wall on one side that faces Audubon, and you have a three-story building, say for example, there, if it were that tall, it feels very different than having a single-story building there. So much more light, so much more, visibility of the sky and all those sorts of things. So we feel that connection, which is the center portion, that the scale of it it serves the project much better than it does if it were taller. From a vehicular perspective, the main drive off of Onkwa, we've integrated elements that are typically used at single-family homes. So you'll see in the rendering this first paved area, which is a darker color. I'm sorry, I'm blocking. So this paved area here, it's a decorative pavement. At this point, it's represented to have something like a cobble color perimeter with a darker kind of paver in the middle. And then on either side of that, it's flanked by stone walls that are parallel to Onkwa. Once you pass that, you're in more of a typical drive surface, which connects up to this center portion of the building. And that portion, again, it'll repeat the same pavers and signify that this is the front door, and that once you are here, it's where we're able to widen the driveway so pickup and drop-off can happen without interfering with the rest of the circulation of the vehicular traffic. Once you pass that, as Thielen said, you go toward this end of the building, and then you can enter the garage, which is below. The edges that abut the vehicular edge all the way down, you'll see from the rendering, have fencing and planting, so that it separates this property on this side from the Mosswood property, and gives some buffer there. The rest of the area, which is along the base of the building on the south side, and then on the base of the building on the east side, has it's layers of plant material with the integration of small and larger canopy trees. So again, using plant material to affect the scale, much like you see on a tree-lined street. If it's covered with, or if the street is lined with canopy trees, then the scale is brought way down, and it just feels more comfortable. And so we've selected plant material at that level so that it provides a reduction in the scale and makes it more comfortable for the human scale. On the far end here, along with what Attorney what's been said already from Ray, there's additional plantings that deal with the environmental aspects, and there's a drainage component there. The plant material that's selected there is for not only the seasonality of it, but it's also for its environmental benefit.
The other thing is that we have a bike storage unit down in the about 650 square feet in the basement, and then it's hard to see, but there's multiple bike racks that'll also be in the front of the building so that we satisfy the bike requirement as requested by the commission.
Thank you. Commissioner Corcoran.
I had a question about the plantings. Are they native?
They are, and they're selected for that reason, and then also for their ornamental value as well. So the goal is to not use non-indigenous plant material.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Yep.
I hear a lot about designing this property for the tenants and making it capable for them to walk to the amenity space without going outside. And then I think about the possibility of these tenants walking to town, since it's close to downtown. I don't know how feasible, other than going to the train station. These people aren't going to be walking down to restaurants in town. If they're going to want to stay indoors to get to the amenities aspect of the building.
I can tell you from personal experience, I live on the Old Post Road, 8 houses on the other side from Uncle Road, and our neighborhood is filled with walkers to downtown, which is a lot further than this project will be. Ourselves, whenever we go to a restaurant downtown, we walk. One of the things that the merchants want to see is they want to see, the nice thing is we have all these restaurants. Well, the restaurants really want to see people who live downtown eating downtown because, you know, they're there Monday through Thursday nights. The people who live in Greenfield Hill live a little further outside of downtown. You know, they'll come, people more likely to use it just on the weekends. I can tell you our street on the other side of Umpqua, which is basically Umpqua and Old Post Road run into each other, there's as much foot traffic as there is car traffic going to downtown. And from personal experience, it's why we live there. It's personal experience. It's why my kids love coming there, to be able to walk to the trains, to be able to walk to town. It is truly a walkable area. It's why Mosswood is so popular. It's why Audubon's so popular. And that's why we feel it is so important to establish all that connectivity.
Okay, do you feel that you're in competition with these other TOD plans that have been presented as
I
far
don't
as
think there's going to be much.
space?
I think this location is so unique. I don't know that there's anything like it between Greenwich and New Haven as with regard to connectivity to a railway, to be able to not have to be 8 stories high, yet foot access to 50 restaurants, to and then only a mile from the beach. I mean, the location is spectacular, and that's why we believe it commands the investment that we put in this, the public outreach that we've done, and the level of quality of amenities and the type of design that we've put forth. Walkability, I think our walkability factor was the highest of any. I looked at it at one point, and it was one of the highest walkability ratings you can get. And that's what all renters look at now, is what's your walkability
Walkability means
rating?
that it's in proximity to the downtown area, but are these, you know, these empty nesters, these, you know, single parents, are they the walkers that you desire?
I'm telling you, our downtown, the only problem why we don't have as much foot traffic downtown is because we don't have as much housing that's downtown. People consider themselves on the other side of the Old Post Road walking distance to downtown. This is, you know, 1,000 feet from you could be at the Old Post Tavern in a 3-minute walk. You can be at Las Vegas and get your coffee in the morning quicker than you can trying to find a parking space along the Old Post Road. I can tell you.
That's true.
Which is why we walk to town and why this is so important, because these people who are all going to use the downtown amenities can all walk there. Try and park at Las Vegas and get a cup of coffee in the morning.
Wouldn't dare.
It's a quick walk. This could be a real. We think that we're trying to make this the jewel above the ground that we think it is on the ground. That's all.
I can tell how much work you put into it. I just, my concern.
I'm only speaking from personal. Not as this time I can actually speak.
You know,
I'm not an expert. I live there. I live there.
I used to take the train. I used to park at the Knights of Columbus.
I think if you
train
hear
hill.
from some of the people from Audubon Village, they'll tell you they're walking. The next project after us, the next development after us. They've got 16 units there. They're all walking to town.
I'd like to hear from them.
Anybody but me at this point, I understand. I will gladly rest my case and come back at the end for a short finish up, and we will get you out of here before you cut off. I apologize.
Don't apologize.
Question before-
Commissioner Francis.
The affordable units, could you tell me the 9 of them? The 2, what are 1-bedroom and what are 2-bedroom, how many?
It has to be, in my understanding, they have to be random, they have to be indistinguishable,
Yeah,
and proportionate,
okay. So there'll be, what, half will be 1 and half will be 2?
basically that.
5 will be 2?
Yeah.
The 2...
5 and 4, something like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, continuing on that, I noticed there was a Schedule B in the Affordable Housing Plan. It shows the specifications for the units to be leased. under the affordable housing plan, and it lists the smallest units.
I don't know if I saw that. These are minimum square footage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, those are minimum square footage.
Well, that's what I noticed, that
Yeah.
they're the smallest ones.
No, no. They have to be random, they have to be equal, but our minimum square footages of those type of units are that. So they have to be at least that, but they have to be randomly distributed.
Thank you.
It was just not, you understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions for Attorney Rizzio?
Thank you.
Okay, very good, thank you. Any members of the public wish to be heard? Thanks. Come on up.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I'm Bob Lottie. I am the vice president of the Mosswood Board of Directors Condominium Association, which is a neighbor of this project. And I testified here at the initial application, which was for 118 units in one large building. Mosswood was in favor of that project. We are even more in favor of this revised project. We are 100% behind it. And I can tell you that I have been so pleased. I've been dealing with Ray Rizzio for months, and Andy, and they have been totally cooperative with all the concerns that Mosswood had. We think this will be a great for Mosswood, great for the town of Fairfield. And my wife and I downsized. We lived on Sturgis Road for many years. We bought a condominium in Mosswood 3 years ago. We love it. I'm 71 years old, and I walk to town all the time. And this project that Ray is talking about will be a great project for people that want to get out and walk and go to the center of town, to the restaurants, the library, Fairfield Theater Company. So we are very excited at Mosswood about this project. And including the connecting thing, that's fine with us. We liked everything about the project. Thank you very much.
All right, question for you. So you're here as the vice president?
I'm here as the vice president, as a representative of Mosswood Board of Directors, and I speak for the Mosswood Board of Directors and for our community.
And for the entire Mosswood
Yes,
community?
sir.
Yep.
How many people is that?
136 units in Mosswood.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Yep. Come on up.
Hi there, I'm Priscilla Scanlon. I live at 164 Ludlow Road, so I'm the person that has the single-family home, 260-foot setback. I love the new 90-unit project. I was in favor of the first project. I live on Ludlow Road. Everybody in my neighborhood walks to the train. Friends come over to my house and park, and we walk into town to go to the restaurants. I do think it's going to be a walking community, just because of the vicinity, and I love it. I think it's really pretty. It's going to be a huge improvement.
Thank you very much.
I'm Cindy Pomeroy. I live at 377 Uncle Road in Audubon Village. I'm the president of the board of directors for Audubon Village, so I'm speaking on behalf of myself as well as the board and our 16 unit owners, and we are all in favor of this project. We were in favor of it when it was the 118. More so with this project, if you look at Audubon Village, if anybody has ever driven by there, we are 4 huge buildings separated by 6-foot stairwells. That's unattractive. This is much more attractive than what our buildings are like. So if you're looking at the 2 buildings and are concerned with that amenity area, the lower amenity area in the middle, that is a much more attractive design than having tall buildings jammed together like ours. So I wish our complex looked like this. That amenity area is like an extension of your home. So if I was living there and I had to walk outside and I'm going to the gym and I'm in my shorts or I'm going to go check my mail, I would not appreciate having to walk outside. So I understand what you're saying, but if I lived there, I would want it connected and I would want to be sheltered from the elements. I commute every day by train, walk to the train station, never take my car downtown, always walking downtown, as do most of the residents that live at Audubon Village. So I think it's you're not going to see the car traffic coming out of there and parking downtown. You're going to see people walking. So as I said, I think we're all in favor of this new design, and Ray and Andy and everybody at the project has been wonderful to deal with, so.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Jan Reber, Beaumont Street. I really like this project. The connecting corridor reminds me a lot of what I see at corporate campuses and university campuses, where a lot of buildings are connected by glass corridors. They're distinct buildings, they have distinct names, but there's glass corridors connecting them. And I think that this really fits that model that I'm used to seeing at a corporate campus or a university campus. I'd like to talk about the affordability plan briefly, and I'll give you a handout on that. There are really 4 issues in the affordability plan that don't meet your normal criteria. First of all, they talk about having housing opportunity units. There is no such thing. Your regulations require below market rate units, so that the wording needs to be corrected. Your regulations require that in Schedule B, the specific units that are going to be used for affordable housing need to be specified. That's critical because the sizes are so different in the 1 and 2 bedrooms that they really need to specify the units. There's no reason why they can't. They know what the sizes are going to be. Listing minimal sizes in Schedule B does not meet your regulations. Thirdly, in Section 6C of the plan, they talk about the Southwest Regional Planning Agency. Fairfield's not part of that. Fairfield's part of MetroCog that I know some of you know quite well. Section 16 makes reference to restrictive covenants that, quote, bind future purchasers. There are no future purchasers here, they're renters. So these are 4 areas, I've handed them out, where there's just issues with the affordability plan. If they were to use the model plan, we wouldn't be having these issues. You know, they're doing cut and paste instead of using the model plan that I'm always trying to sell to you, but I don't seem to quite get where I'd like to get. Which brings me to my last point. I was disappointed that you didn't discuss 15% affordable for trademark, and I hope you'll consider it here. We have a town asset, the train station. We have 3 schools located very close to this development. Talk about the need to have new teachers, teachers' aides, et cetera, that fit in the affordability category, being able to walk to where they work. Most of our school teachers in Fairfield don't live here. This is a real opportunity to get some of our teachers living in Fairfield right near where they work. We really need to look at doing 15% affordable. Keep in mind that there's the same number of bedrooms here there was before, and in the colloquy at the end of the last presentation, I thought Ray Rizzio seemed amenable to 15% affordable. So I hope you'll consider that. I know you didn't for trademark, but this is the last big development near a train station you're likely to see in the near future, and I hope you'll consider 15%. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Anyone else? No? Very good. Attorney Rizzio. We can make these, just if you wouldn't mind addressing the affordable housing plan. I'm curious why you didn't use the model plan. You can answer that, and just answer the question about whether you're willing to consider 15%.
I'll make we would not be willing to consider 15%. We think the 10% meets the regulation, it's what's required. We've also modified the project considerably with regard to the number of units, going down from 118 down to 90, although that was a whole separate world. At 10%, we believe you're really striking, and above 10%, we really start to strike at the viability of the project. And we believe that, once again, it's consistent with the regulations. We don't feel it should be just arbitrarily attached to our project only. If the regulations were to change to be 15%, then we have to make a decision with regard to what type of project. Your regulations require 10%, we're meeting that 10%.
Got it.
With regard to the plan, that's a plan that has been approved before. If there are some inconsistencies, I thought we used the bulk of the model plan. We'd be happy to, as a condition of approval, to identify the specific units to be affordable.
Yeah. Well, all the comments are appropriate.
Right, and
we had a question here.
We would agree that be a condition of approval that the future plan be approved by either the terms of, and I think the commission's done that before, subject to the review of, and approval by staff of the final affordability plan.
Right. Affordable Housing Commission.
Correct.
Okay. And,
With regard to a quick summary?
yeah, I mean, summary, I don't know whether you need to summarize.
Well,
If there's
I
anything
just
you
want-
want
I
to
think-
address in
I think-
rebuttal, that would be helpful, but I don't think you need to summarize the project.
Well, I just want to say, I think, especially for the commissioners that are new, and as they'll see, you see the kind of public, this is a 90-unit project in the center of town. I don't think I've ever been associated with a project in 30 years that I've been practicing that has had more public outreach, more transparency, more input from the outside. I think you've heard it from every direction of our neighbors that there's unanimous support for this project. I have petitions which I will submit to Jim from the downtown merchants. There's also a letter from the only other neighbor, I think, that abuts a portion of our property, who wrote a letter in support of the project. That is, I don't know if it's in your packet, but Jim has it. And we appreciate everything you've done, the time you've given us, the thought you put into this project. I would hope that you pass the text amendment in that I think it fine tunes. I don't think it exposes the commission to any future misuse of a regulation. And I think all the sound thinking and planning that went into creating this project, I appreciate your time and efforts in considering everything we put before you. So thank you very much. We believe this is consistent with your master plan, consistent with your regulations, and if the commission would like to, if they do adopt the text amendment, adopt as a condition of approval our alternate plan that's in your package. So thank you very much, and I beat the 11 o'clock deadline. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Yes, I'm mailing the petitions in as we
Okay,
speak.
and I'll close the public hearing on this item and adjourn the meeting.